Welcome to the Backlash, a weekly discussion about the past, present, and future of the Western world. I am your host, Rebecca Hargraves. You may know me from my YouTube channel where you were probably watching Blonde in the Belly of the Beast. I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. and producer, Dave Riley. Mr. and producer.
Good evening. How are
Mr.
you?
And.
Mr. and...
Oh, I'm hearing something.
I hear something.
Why is that coming through?
Vince James. Can they hear double?
Nope. It's from me, probably.
And Mr. Cameron McGregor. Welcome all. You gotta stop this. It's gonna make me puke.
Yeah.
Wait, why did that happen?
I don't know. It's clearly up somewhere.
So we've gotten some donations, so we have been streamlining and upgrading our stream. So it's supposed to be better. It looks a lot better, but we're still working through some technical stuff.
We just got a new thing. So I mean, I just dropped like another like $500 on some new cables, and we've got 4 screens now, so we can finally see all of our guests and all of our content. But yeah, still ironing out.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do a video, like a cell phone video of like the setup here, because this is awesome.
It's crazy.
Like what I'm seeing is awesome. Like if you were to see this stuff, you'd be impressed. I'm impressed.
But there are a lot of moving parts. So every week we hope to get a little bit better. I was hearing double audio. So if you guys didn't hear my introduction.
We're still getting double audio. I'm
Dave Riley,
I am
Vince
working on
James,
that.
Cameron McGregor. Before we get right into it, I wanted to let you know that in the lower part of the screen, there's a link that takes you to some of the ways you can support the show. We're going to have an Entropy link up. StreamYard, Power Chats are up. We do read all of your contributions live at the end of the show. You can also support us on Patreon, Subscribe Store, or through our website, thebacklash.net/donate, where we take conventional donations and Bitcoin. Please send us 9 Bitcoin.
Yeah, so if you want to do Power Chat, you can get it all through there, thebacklash.net/
I figured out the technical issues.
Sweet.
It was Entropy, which is our newest addition on the show. You'll be able to send super chats through Entropy. I think you might have already said that, but I wasn't listening.
It's okay.
And as always, we'll read them all at the end of the show in the hilarious super chat segment.
So please help us make the show better every week. We've got big dreams for this podcast. We need your support. Now, onto the show. We have so much to talk about this week. I had to cut many topics. Nobody was happy about it. Couldn't cut this one, though, because it is the 1-year anniversary of this weird Jewish tunnel story of 2024.
Damn, it's been a year
It's
already?
been a whole year. And last year, what a strange way to start that off. Are you ready to take a clip, or should we talk about this a little bit?
I am ready to take a clip.
For those of you that, I don't know, maybe you just need a refresher. Let's go roll a clip 1.
Oh, yes. Ah, yes, coming out of the sewers.
Good Lord. It was just the most bizarre story.
Dude, they were literally coming out of the sewers. Like, how crazy is that?
Stained mattresses, baby high chairs. There was something deeply demonic about what was going on. So an update to this, if you can click on the New York Post link, a Brooklyn judge on Monday berated a rebellious crew of Hasidic Jewish students charged with digging a secret tunnel under a prominent Crown Heights synagogue. So this Jewish judge was basically like, you're up to no good. You got into some mischief. And they basically got a slap on the wrist. But they're saying that they weren't even operating with the knowledge of their elder rabbis, which is insane. I mean, look at this operation. And they were like, the judge was like, I know that the rabbis didn't know because they would have pulled the proper permits. It's like, you must think that we're so dumb to believe this. And of course, none of the other crimes that I'm sure were being committed, a la Guatemalan Jewish sex traffickers.
Lev Tahor, right? That was a different
different
group.
group.
That's
Yeah,
Lev Tahor, which is like an extremist group that's actually much smaller and more radical than Chabad Lubavitch.
Yep.
And they were operating a A sex trafficking?
Yes.
Yeah, you didn't see the Ryan Matta
I think
stuff
they
on
pulled
it?
out 160 kids, something like that.
What the heck?
Yeah.
You didn't hear about this?
No, when was this?
Bro,
was
this
last
was
month.
this was okay, hold on. Oh, we're already off track. Lev Tahor arrest.
This is last month?
Yeah. So Lev Tahor, cult leader, to be arrested. Okay. Wait,
Was
that
it in
might not be
Guatemala?
El Salvador.
Oh,
This
no,
is
no,
just
he was
one
arrested
day
in-
ago. This
in El
is just
Salvador.
one day ago. Cult leader arrested in El Salvador to be extradited to Israel. That's interesting.
Tried to flee with a fake passport.
This was the other one. Lev Tahor, women and children attack police while in Guatemalan custody. Jeez. So anyway,
the
that's a
heck?
different group. Guatemalan.
Wow.
Yeah, here it is. Guatemalan police clash with Jewish sect over 160 at-risk children.
Yeah, you can't tell me that these people in Crown Heights were not up to the same kind of stuff. That was an advanced tunnel digging operation.
Well, there are different explanations that have been given as to why those tunnels were
All
there.
reasonable, I'm sure.
I've got a couple friends in the Chabad Lubavitch movement. Good people.
What?
Yeah, of course I do. Who doesn't? I thought everybody did.
Me?
No. No, the guy that I'm friends with is actually he's not in it. He's been kind of ostracized, and he's been talking about how there's factions growing at 770, where there's kind of more of an establishment crowd that was enforcing mask mandates and vaccines and stuff. There's a anti-establishment crowd, and then there's this tunnel digging group, which is totally extreme and off the rails. So there's a lot of internal conflict going on right now in the Chabad movement, from what I understand.
Dude, it's like the Chabad headquarters, and there's no way that they didn't know that they were digging tunnels.
Of course
Like
not,
I have
yeah.
it's just very hard for me to believe.
No, I think they knew that they were digging tunnels. I just think that they were arguing about it for like a long time, and then finally got around to being like, "Hey, all right, we're calling the cops."
Claiming
Who did call the cops on that, by the way?
I have no idea.
That's an interesting question. I should probably records request that.
I don't know, but they came out of the sewers.
They were coming out of
doesn't make them look good.
No.
Right after October
I
7th.
thought they were doing construction, and that's how they came across it. That's what I remember.
Ah,
Oh,
that
you
makes
might be
sense.
right. You
Yeah.
might be right.
But two of the
Yeah.
accused students had their cases adjourned, and they'll have their charges dismissed if they refrain from any more digging.
Wow.
That's really all they have to do. Just stop digging.
That's crazy. No other place would get away with that. There's no other place that would the judge be like, "Oh, I don't think the elders knew that this was going on, and so there's going to be a slap on the wrist." Like, and then they tried to say that they were kids. A lot of these guys looked like they were 40 years
like
old.
they were 40 years old. You know what the judge's name was?
What?
It was something super Jewish. Adam Perlmutter.
Nice.
Yep.
Let me find it.
Adam Perlmutter.
The story went pretty viral, I think, a year ago, and then all of a sudden it just stopped.
It got memory hold totally. Just like the Guatemalan sex trafficking got memory hold. Vince didn't even know about it.
I didn't even know about it.
It
Yeah.
just totally skipped over Vince.
No, but
Wow.
they, the fake right, they always try to like bury it by saying, "Oh, this is kind of like a crazy, don't get too conspiratorial about this. This is kind of like, this makes us look crazy." It's like, really, dude? Like, you see this El Salvador sex trafficking thing. Did you guys ever see the Vice article about the, it was talking about how you have a lot of these, a lot of these communities, you have this sort of like a lot of pedophilia. Mm-hmm. And this Vice News article was basically talking about this guy coming across this rabbi who like had a kid. I think the title of the article was like pedophile factory or something like this. It was a serious article, and it talked about this guy who came across this rabbi, and he had a baby on his lap, and he talked about, and he like graphically explained the things that he saw. And so, when you see this stuff, a lot of these people, they talk about priests being pedophiles, but when you break it down into like, you do the math, I think that within the Jewish community, within the Hasidic Jewish community, there's probably a way higher rate of pedophilia than there is in the Catholic community.
I'm sure. I think there's some statistics to back that up that have also probably been memory hold, but they do have a lot of genetic problems from inbreeding. Tay-Sachs, yeah. And then the BRCA gene is super common. That's why so many women in Hollywood have had prophylactic mastectomies. Sorry,
that's interesting that you know that.
You've heard about the herpes outbreaks, right?
Yes.
Didn't I give you guys a lecture about streamlining the show before we went live?
What do we got?
Let's talk about Jonathan Greenblatt. There's already so much of this control in government and in the judicial system.
Speaking of dysgenics.
Yeah, really.
Speaking of weird guys.
He's such an ugly bastard. Free speech, of course, is being totally attacked. So let's play this clip too from Jonathan Greenblatt.
We've got to start doing things differently.
Ugh.
And the same goes here in Israel. This means that the problem won't be solved by yet another new Knesset task force. It won't be solved by the government just throwing money at the problem. It won't be solved by the IDF spokesperson's unit issuing updated talking points or suddenly using TikTok. Like us in America, you need to adopt new strategies, to experiment with creative tactics, to study the results and scale what works. Maybe it's a whole new IDF unit, call it 8300, to lead this fight. But we need the kind of genius that manufactured Apollo gold pagers and infiltrated Hezbollah for over a decade to prepare for this battle.
Really?
We need
That's
the kind of
what they're saying.
courage that executed Operation Deep Layer inside Syria and destroyed Iranian missile manufacturing capabilities to undertake this mission. This is the kind of ingenuity and inventiveness that have always been a hallmark of the State of Israel, that have always been a characteristic of the Jewish people. I know we can do it.
Anyway, in this clip, he talks about this new IDF Unit 8300 to be created with the same kind of genius behind the Lebanon pager attack as a way to fight anti-Semitism at home. This is what they are going to do to us. They're going to collect information on people that are saying things online about Jews, and then this is how it's going to go. We're going to be in it. Do you think we're already in a huge data bank?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they. It seems like they make it. They sort of form the world to make it impossible for you to get around this this like panopticon surveillance state that they've been constructing for quite some time. Long gone are the days where you can sort of like stick to a flip phone. Now you have to have a cell phone.
You have to.
Because you have to download an app for a certain service and you got to log into this. And even in the airport now, I think starting this year, you're going to have a real ID if you don't have a passport to be able to fly. And so it's nearly impossible to get away from this panopticon surveillance state that they're building for us. And I think we're all in a database somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure. We have more Greenblatt. Greenblatt's not done yet. Can we play clip 2?
We can try.
Let me know, live chat, if the second time they said the audio was faint, but they could hear it.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, if you want to wait to figure it out.
No, it's okay. We're figuring it out on the fly. So I saw somebody in the chat was like, you guys just need to buckle and hire a real producer. And it's like, oh, okay, send us some power chats.
I think Dave is doing his job good.
I'm doing okay.
He's
just a tech nerd, and so he gets all these new gadgets and gizmos, and he's always working on something, taking something up. He's like a tweaker. He's like a meth addict without the meth. Great. So we add new things every time I come in here. There's something new.
Yeah, but when you start a podcast, my earring just fell out. When you start a podcast, you kind of have to manage expectations of the audience, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's only gonna get better.
We kept the bar pretty low.
Pretty low, yeah.
Yeah, and now it's just gonna keep getting exponentially better.
I mean, we're in 4K this week too, which is a big upgrade. We went from 720 to 4K, so
really?
You're welcome. Yeah. We've got much higher resolution this go around.
Dave's all butthurt about this producer comment.
I am very butthurt about the fact that I spent like 10 hours getting the stream set up and like reworking everything. It doesn't matter. No
these things happen.
Okay.
More Greenblatt.
More Greenblatt.
Let's see if this works.
The kind of genius that manufactured Apollo gold pagers and infiltrated Hezbollah for over a decade to prepare for this battle. We need the kind of courage that executed Operation Deep Layer inside Syria and destroyed Iranian missile manufacturing capabilities to undertake this mission. This is the kind of ingenuity and inventiveness that have always been a hallmark of the State of Israel, that have always been a characteristic of the Jewish people. I know we can do it.
Okay, you guys could hear it, but it was quiet.
Yeah, it's kind of quiet on my end.
It
too.
was kind of a quiet clip.
Yeah, it's a
Nothing
lot of
much I
people
can do about
upload
that.
clips without even thinking about that. But
Idiots.
I do want to say something about that whole surveillance. I know these are rapid fire stories right now, but there's a lot to say about that. If you look at, and I've talked about this on my show before, if you look at Facebook was like literally created by the CIA.
Yeah.
They had this thing, this operation that they had running, LifeLog, and basically this operation was, the goal of the operation was to collect basically every single piece of information they can collect on people, your friends, who you hang out with, what restaurants you like to go to, the houses that you visit of your friends, and this LifeLog operation, which was created by DARPA, ended in 2004, and Facebook was created in 2004.
Not just that, but it was like the same day.
Yeah, it was like the same
day-
month,
yeah.
February of 2004.
Right.
So this operation supposedly ended. Facebook was created in February of 2004, and Facebook did the same thing, except it was voluntary. You voluntarily handed
Well,
that
that's how they get you.
information.
Yeah.
Right. And so, again, they're just sort of like, they've just been sort of molding the world in such a way that you can't get away from this stuff. Our cell phones are next to each other. Look at how they got all the Jan 6ers.
Yeah.
Look at how they got all
Exactly,
the J 6ers.
yeah.
By their cell phone, tracking their cell phone, pinging towers, so forth, tapping into cell phones, recording audio.
Are you familiar with Project Esther?
I've heard of it. Yeah. What?
Oh man, can we pull this website up? It's like a play-by-play for how to destroy, quote, anti-Semitism in the United States, in the Western world. So I'm going to read this blurb. America's virulently anti-Israel, anti-Zionist, anti-American pro-Palestine movement is part of a global Hamas support network. Yes, only people that are pro-Hamas and part of a Hamas support network could possibly be criticizing Jews. That is trying to compel the U.S. government to abandon its long-standing support for Israel, supported by activists and funders dedicated to the destruction of capitalism and democracy. The HSN benefits from the support and training of America's overseas enemies and seeks to achieve its goals by taking advantage of our open society, corrupting our education system, leveraging the American media. Are these people serious?
Yeah.
Co-opting federal government and relying on the American Jewish community's complacency. The National Task Force to Combat Anti-Semitism intends to enlist all willing and able partners in a coordinated effort to combat the scourge of anti-Semitism in the United States. So what does this mean? Can you go down to the part that's priorities and methods? If you just keyword search priorities, they are so explicit about the way that they want to do this. So they have just a play-by-play book. Expose the critical resources fueling anti-Semitism. That is the first thing. So they are going to go after anybody that has any money that's not a Zionist.
Is this the one?
The next one?
This one?
Nope. Mobilize a coalition of private organizations. That's the next one. So they're going to use all of their Zionist-controlled money to back to back the mobilization of or to back the first one, which is exposing the critical resources fueling anti-Semitism. Erode support for anti-Semitism, and then they're going to synchronize coalition actions to maximize impact. So basically what they say in this is how they're going to find us, put us in a database, and then systematically destroy funding based on who is the most wealthy. That's anti-Zionist. And they're really serious about this. Project Zephyr is, similar.
Right.
When was this published on their website?
This came out the same time as Project 2025. And interestingly enough, it was the exact same think tank
Yeah,
that put out
Heritage Foundation.
October 7th, 2024 is when that came out. And it's interesting that, you have in the Heritage Foundation, you've got this really big Opus Dei guy that wrote Project 2025, which was amazing and based, and it had all the right things in it. And then you have some other fellow that's literally creating one of the most draconian programs ever imagined on American soil. It's kind of weird.
And then Project Zephyr, the ADL is using AI to just...
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no,
Rebecca.
go ahead.
Go ahead,
I
Ken.
was just going to say this is not new, right? And this is actually how Zionists have been operating a long time, both in Europe and the United States. They've created a lot of front organizations that have done this for decades, right? The ADL, the Southern Poverty Law Center, the National Lawyers Guild. It's an alphabet soup. It's been documented to some degree by people like Whitney Webb and others, but this is not new. What is new is that it's publicized. It is instead of being subversive, it's very overt, it's very direct. And as I said before, that's a problem because the more attention they bring to their tactics, the way they operate, the more justification for anti-Semitism there is, unfortunately. And that's exactly what's happening across the world. And so effectively what you're seeing happen is a kind of self-entanglement. You see the same thing happen with their intelligence services. It's all fine and good to have a robust brigade of assassins, but eventually you entangle yourself and you fail to achieve your objective. So if you look very objectively at what the Israelis have done in the Middle East, they've just strengthened opposition against them everywhere. And that's the issue. So in other words, these policies are self-destructive. They actually work against the very mission that they're trying to accomplish.
Right.
Yeah, of course. Did you have this tweet on Project
Zephyr? Yeah. This is from the official 1984. It says the ADL's AI that is embedded into every major online company's platforms is crawling every corner of the internet looking for flagged words and images in order to track, target ID, and eliminate dissidents. A foreign agent is classifying U.S. citizens as domestic enemies.
Do you remember the online hate index?
Yeah.
You guys remember that?
Yeah.
They pull up a YouTube video on that. The online hate index. They became trusted flaggers on YouTube's platform. Did you know that?
Yeah.
The ADL did.
Yeah.
And then they also became trusted flaggers on basically every other platform. And then they got involved in racial training in organizations. So yeah, there it is, the online hate index. There was like a video too of like some Jewish woman talking about it. Yeah, you see that Jew? It's like,
Wait, what are in the little bubbles? I can't read those.
Nation, the F word. Here, I can make it bigger. Culture, country, race, problem, old people, need, immigrant, the F word.
There you go. So they basically track, they put in their whatever to the algorithm on these platforms, and then they track these words that people are saying, and then this is how they were able to do that, like mass deplatforming off of YouTube, mass demonetization, mass deplatforming, and then they got involved in racial training. And like, remember when the Starbucks thing happened, where those black guys were kicked out of Starbucks for loitering?
Yeah. They actually were loitering.
They were loitering,
right?
So the ADL got involved in the racial re-education of the employees at Starbucks, and then they got kicked out. They fired the ADL because they said that they were talking too much about Jewish people, basically. It's like,
now,
it's
you know
so crazy.
that the Anti-Defamation League has been doing all of the training for the FBI and local police departments for maybe the past, since about 1984 is when the partnership between the FBI and the ADL was like really solidified. And that actually happened right here in Coeur d'Alene when FBI agent Wayne Manis, who the Order movie is based on, he started working with the ADL Center out in Seattle. And that's kind of when that whole thing formalized. And then, of course, like if you want to become an FBI agent, you have to go through their, racial sensitivity training. And, they've got broad partnerships with the Department of Justice as well. So, they are targeting people and then lobbying to have these police agencies go after their enemies. I've spoken with... there was a guy who was like a former undercover investigator in the LA County Sheriff's Office. Really nice guy. Ran for sheriff up here in Kootenai County a little while ago. And he was talking about how he actually sent someone to infiltrate the JDL and how the JDL was constantly trying to get the LA County Sheriff's Department to do their dirty work for them. And he told me, he's like, yeah, we always took their information, but we never acted on it. So, there's some people that get it.
How much do you guys think that? Because like to be able to find who thinks a certain way, you sort of have to boost them or platform them first. So how much do you guys believe this conspiracy theory that on it, that they're just sort of letting you say whatever you want to say on X, so that they could basically track you and find out, you know, who
Bag
thinks
and
this
tag
way.
you.
Yeah.
Because you were talking about this Project Esther, where they have to find out who these people are and then who has the most money so that they can go and target them. And I was just thinking about Cameron. He was talking about the National Lawyers Guild. Maybe a lot of people don't even know what this organization is, but if you've ever been to like a Trump rally or one of these protests back in the 2016 era, they're always there with the lime green hats. And they have these lime green hats on. They're going around and they're helping like Antifa members. Like if an Antifa member gets arrested or something or thrown in prison, they bring them their medicines, they bring them their prescription pills, or they record the police arresting them. And I remember back during the protest with after this whole October 7th thing, you had a bunch of protests at universities, and you had a lot of these people in lime green hats that were embedded into these groups that were protesting for Palestinian rights, and a lot of them were supposedly on the surface in favor of this protest for Palestinian rights, but they were like, they had their cell phones, they were filming a lot, and so it's like it's very weird because you have this Jewish group that is part of this Jewish lobby, the National Lawyers Guild, that's embedded into these pro-Palestinian protests. It doesn't make any sense, right? So it's the same strategy of like outing the people that they can list on the Canary Missions website or something.
Exactly.
It's very...
No, and I think it gets even worse, right? I mean, I don't know if we talked about it on our last show, but this idea that, you know, Elon Musk has filed for money transmitter permits in every state. Because he wants to make X money or X payments or whatever, right? He wants to be able to do banking on X. Well, when you get approved to be a money transmitter, when you get that license, you are then obligated to report suspicious activity. And so with the amount of users, however many 100 million, whatever active users there are on X, they're going to need a way to be able to like submit these reports for like suspicious activity. So they're going to use Grok for that, I think. I think they're going to be using Grok to submit those things. And frankly, it's going to overload whatever department of the government gets those, right? Because if Grok is just spitting out these suspicious activity reports, like literally like 10 per second, into the office itself is going to be overloaded, and then they're going to use that as a pretext to either deregulate or like adjust the regulations so that it does work, right? And all the while, Grok and X is going to be looking at who's moving money where, who's talking to who's in a group chat with who, and creating this kind of internal privatized social credit score. So as opposed to like the state making a social credit score and then holding you accountable to that, it'll be these
companies,
private
right,
corporations with a private-public partnership, which like, you know, Elon Musk getting an office in the White House, like, hello, that is exactly what a private-public partnership would look like. So
I know Cam doesn't think that these people in government have their shit together, but when you have private-public partnerships, they certainly have a handle on things, and then especially when you throw sort of like the Israel lobby and the Jewish lobby in the mix, which is crazy. You see all these people who are trying to push this whole woke right meme online that are saying that the Israel lobby, AIPAC, doesn't have that much power. Well, sure, maybe AIPAC itself doesn't have all of the power, but they're just one of 75 separate organizations when it comes to the Israel lobby. And then on top of that, if you want to talk about the Jewish lobby as a whole, you've got the National Lawyers Guild, you've got the American Zionist Council, you've got
the Zionist Organization
of America,
JTA,
right?
You've got Stand With Us, Roz Rothstein's group, what else? You have StopAntisemitism.org. There's a lot of them. There's a whole constellation of these things.
Yeah, but so a couple things. One is enforcement is very difficult, okay? I mean, look at the government, right? In order to enforce tax law, in order to enforce regular law, you have to have massive enforcement agencies that are well-trained, well-organized, et cetera, et cetera. And then, and this is the principal problem that they face, is once you get to a critical mass, then all of a sudden the enforcement actually becomes a feedback loop, and it actually creates opposition against you, which is what we're going to get into in just a minute. And that's exactly what's happening in the Democratic Party. There are anti-AIPAC organizations that are emergent because of the bullying tactics. What they've set up works so long as you can control the mainstream press, the mainstream institutions, et cetera. And the opposition you're dealing with is very small. But if political awareness of what you're doing goes viral, then the enforcement mechanism becomes very, very difficult. And so, yeah, they can try on Twitter all they want. They're going to track how many tens of thousands of accounts are they going to track? And then what are they going to do legally
Millions.
to each one of these people? Okay. The numbers are going to scale to unimaginable levels. And then you're going to start to see counter organizations against them. This is why these people always get into trouble, and they are again.
Well, if they really want to go after you, though, I mean, we saw what happened with January 6th. It was the largest investigation in U.S. history. There's thousands of people that were arrested, 1,500 phones seized. You had the largest amount of search warrants that we've ever seen issued in the history of the country within a matter of a couple of months. But that did bog down the government a lot. They even said that they had to sort of pace themselves. I mean, people are getting arrested 4 years later. This was 2020, 2021. People are getting arrested.
But let's take that example, okay? Because you're quite right. The FBI, obviously, and other government agencies, no doubt, took part in that. Did that weaken or undermine the Trump movement? No, made it stronger. Okay. And that's the whole point here. You got to think bigger. This is not just about a few people. Now, it is tragic what has befallen these individuals. I'm not refuting that. That's true. But the objective behind January 6th, what was it? It was to crush MAGA. It was to destroy the Trump movement. Did it achieve that? No, it's made it stronger.
Well, that's always how it's going to work. It improved morale considerably, January 6th, because people really developed this us versus them mentality with the federal government. And I think that was so good for the dissident right especially.
Yeah, if it becomes sort of palatable to defend them, right? At first, you saw a lot of even Republicans in office that were very reluctant to defend the J6ers who are now defending the J6ers, right? So you have to sort of normalize the defense of that crowd. I don't know how successful we're going to be in normalizing the defense of people who are considered to be or labeled anti-Semitic, So it's going to be a little bit tougher with people like that. I guess
the issue that bedevils our side is organization or lack thereof, right? This is what we talked about before, is that we don't have real party representation. This is why we need to build a new party. And you're exactly right. The GOP is not going to do anything about this because they're an establishment that's been co-opted, subverted, undermined, and destroyed by the same people. However, the representatives on Capitol Hill do not equal MAGA. We are MAGA. We are the real dissident right. And it is incumbent upon us to reorganize so that those people do have representation. Now, are we there yet? No, we're not. But are we on the road to Damascus, as they say? Yeah, we are. And momentum is only getting stronger because of the enforcement mechanisms that the Zionist movement has set in motion, basically telegraphing to the world that all of the conspiracies about them running the country, running the media, that they're all true.
Right.
That they're all true.
That's absolutely true. All the stories that we've discussed, this tunnel story, Jonathan Greenblatt and how he's going to oversee all of this free speech, anti-free speech initiative, they're all related. They're all about us being made to submit. And we definitely have to discuss this Pete Hegseth confirmation hearing. Most of what is being discussed in the right-wing media is how he owned the libs about his love child. That's what everybody's talking about. But who's talking about this embarrassing humiliation ritual that was conducted by Tom Cotton? I'm not sure if we can play the clip.
Yeah. Well, hold on. Before you play that, can I just say something real fast? I don't know what we have, if we're going to be, I don't think we're talking about TikTok at all today, but I do want to mention this because TikTok is getting banned on January 19th unless it sells.
Gen Z is so pissed.
Well, but it's not, listen, there are thousands of small businesses on TikTok that are using TikTok Shop, that are businesses that went viral that are now actually making a living because of their viral TikTok videos, because of how easy it is to go viral on a short form content platform like that. Because your people are constantly swiping through short form content, and so therefore they push out all sorts of content, and it's very easy to go viral on the platform because content consumption rate is very, very, very high. So businesses, tens of thousands of small businesses, are going to get hit from this. And what they're saying is, if it gets banned, right? That if no one buys the platform, that eventually there's not going to be any more updates. You're not going to be able to download the app from the App Store anymore. There's not going to be any more updates, and the platform will get so many bugs that you're not going to be able to use the platform anymore. Now, their reasoning for banning TikTok was because they say because of the Chinese Communist Party, because the Chinese were getting our data and blah, 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 blah.
It's because anti-Semitism is spreading like wildfire in younger generations.
The younger generations, right? Because a lot of the millennials are on X, right? A lot of the Gen Xers are on X and boomers are on X. But it's the young, and this is something that Jonathan Greenblatt said a long time ago. He said, forget the left and right. It's not about we were wrong. It's not about the left and right anymore. It's generational. It's a generational battle, and we have to go after the younger generation. What's the first step they took? The universities, right? Replacing the leaders at the universities, and then TikTok. So that's the real reason.
But that's foolish. It's going to anger them so much.
Well, look where they're going. They're going to an even more Chinese app, right?
Yeah.
That just goes to show you that they don't give a shit about China.
Yeah.
Like the Chinese.
Zhao Hongshu, right? This new app that everyone's going to.
The Little Red Book.
Zhao Hongshu means the Little Red Book, which is like literally the Communist Manifesto, and nobody's stopping it. There's no problem. I actually like it. I've been learning some Mandarin. It's been fun. It's been really interesting.
Cam?
Yeah, I was just going to say why. The more important question is why on a platform like TikTok, as you correctly said, Vince, which is focused on the younger audience. I don't use TikTok. I don't even know how to use TikTok. I'm 40 years old, for Christ's sakes. Why are they talking about it? Because of what we addressed a moment ago. Because you cannot have a political discussion in the United States anymore without bumping into the JQ. It's everywhere. It is a minefield that they have set up. By virtue of the enforcement mechanisms, by virtue of appointing, an ambassador that represents anti-Semitic trends in the United States, which is what Trump has set in motion. These things are just raising more awareness and forcing the issue on the younger generations that are only going to become more curious about exactly what's going on in the country. Again, it's working against them.
Of course. Jonathan Greenblatt seems to have identified the problem and then instituted the worst possible solution.
As always.
As always, I know.
Didn't Nikki Haley say
hubris.
you get 17% more anti-Semitic with every hour that you spend on TikTok?
What? They have
said
statistics like that?
No, but that's what she said. That was her. I think she just made it up.
What happens when you get to 100?
I don't know, but I tried to spend a lot of time on TikTok after hearing that.
Yeah, really. You spend 8 hours on TikTok and you're just Hitler.
You're just Hitler.
There is, let me see if I can pull it up. There is a new statistic that 50% of the world
Oh, yeah, I saw this. Of the
is
world is
anti-Semitic.
anti-Semitic.
Let's see.
What is that? What do they mean?
Yeah, here it is 2 days ago.
But what does
From the
anti-Semitism
ADL.
mean from the ADL?
Right.
It means nothing at this point because they've completely abused the term and it doesn't even mean what it used to mean.
They keep adding to it.
No, but
What
I
do they
want to
say?
know. I want to know
Anti-Semitic-
how happy this should make me.
Well, here, go to the State Department's, type in State Department definition of anti-Semitism.
Well, they're trying to adopt the IHRA.
It's the same thing. State Department's definition of anti-Semitism is the exact same as that definition. There it is. Defining anti-Semitism, United States. So if you just scroll down, you see all these bullet points, and they just keep adding to this.
Jeez, they do keep adding to it.
Accusing Jews as a people of being responsible for wrongdoing.
Holding Jews collectively responsible for actions of the state of Israel? Come on.
Accusing Jews as a people of being responsible for real or imagined wrongdoing committed by a single Jewish person or group, or even for acts committed by non-Jews.
Interesting. I do all of these
The one
things.
that I really love is the one using the symbols and images associated with classic anti-Semitism to characterize Israel or the Israelis. There was another one that was about likening drawing comparisons of contemporary Israeli policy to that of the Nazis. That's the second from the bottom.
Holding Jews
That's
collectively
just-
responsible for the actions. Accusing Jews of being more loyal to the state of Israel than to the country that they reside in.
That's literally everybody.
That's Jonathan Pollard. How is that
They
not
literally
Jonathan Pollard?
testified to that in Congress. There were like Jews that said, this is the whole point.
Right.
Like, we are Zionists. We are more loyal. That's the whole point.
That's the fundamental premise of Zionism. Making mendacious, dehumanizing, or demonizing claims about that's what they do. Everything here is what they do to white people.
Yeah,
Accusing
totally.
Jews as a people of being responsible for wrongdoing.
I know.
That's what they do.
But pay reparations.
Yeah.
outrageous.
Unbelievable.
But 46% of people, how is this not 100% of people?
Because 100% of people aren't on
Well, I mean,
X.
how many people are on the
We need
internet?
more people on X. We need more.
Yeah, really. And 44% of people
They're going
are
to go after the
liars.
richest anti-Semites. They're going to start with Dan Bilzerian.
54%?
And work
Yeah,
their way
there we
down.
go.
Yeah, probably.
Are we able to play this clip?
We're gonna
We
give
don't
it a
have-
go. We're gonna give it a go. I
Please,
changed
live
a couple
chat, be
settings.
honest with me, because I
Let
know
us
some of you
know
were-
if you can hear
Let
it.
us know if you can hear this right away. Okay?
So this was Pete Hegseth's confirmation hearing, where he was put to a test of allegiance to a foreign nation by Senator Tom Cotton.
I want to give you a chance to respond to what they said about you. I think the first one accused you of being a Christian Zionist. I'm not really sure why that is a bad thing. I'm a Christian. I'm a Zionist. Zionism is that the Jewish people deserve a homeland in the ancient Holy Land where they've lived since the dawn of history. Do you consider yourself a Christian Zionist?
Senator, I'm a Christian, and I robustly support the state of Israel and its existential defense, and the way America comes alongside them is a great help.
Thank you. Because another protester, and I think this one was a member of Code Pink, which, by the way, is a Chinese Communist front group these days, said that you support Israel's war in Gaza. I support Israel's existential war in Gaza. I assume, like me and President Trump, you support that war as well, don't you?
Senator, I do. I support Israel.
All right, you were listening into the confirmation hearing of.
That's
Oh, they
outrageous.
cut that off there.
They cut
huh?
it off. They of course cut it off.
There was another clip that it had the whole thing, but at the end he talked about he asked about the Iraq War toward the end of that clip, and he was like, "Do you think that we were wrong in the Iraq War?" And he was like, "Well, I think that we did the best knowing what we knew." And it reminded me of that Douglas Feith investigation.
Right.
And I put it side by side, and it said the exact same thing that Douglas Feith did when he was asked during this investigation into his doctoring of intelligence coming in from Israel about weapons of mass destruction. He said, "I think they did the best with what they knew at the time." That's exactly what Hegseth said.
What did Netanyahu know at the time on October 7th?
Yeah, really.
It's a good
Because
question.
they knew, and they, I believe they got in trouble for doctoring some of the intelligence tapes, which is
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, you tweeted that thing out today.
Yeah, I did.
What was it called? The Hannibal.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting. Let me pull this up because not a lot of people know. Not a lot of people know about this. So I tweeted, "Wait until the Christian Zionists find out about the Hannibal Directive and how Israel killed hundreds of their own citizens on October 7th. Oh, and also, there were no mass rapes, beheaded babies, or babies in ovens. That was Likud propaganda." So the Hannibal Directive, which not a lot of people know about, was this decision that was made by the IDF to murder their own citizens to prevent them from being taken as hostages into Gaza. And this has been extensively documented by, let's see. Oh, geez, something's going on over here. Aaron Maté
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
and the guy, what's his name? The gray zone dude.
Yeah, the great. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
I don't remember who I'm talking about. But
Yeah,
anyway.
but it's interesting that they blocked the UN investigation into the rapes that were committed by Hamas members against Israeli women. Why would they block the UN investigation
Right.
into that?
Yeah.
Unless they were concerned about hiding Israeli atrocities. Yeah, there it is.
Right.
Israel blocks UN probe into Hamas sexual crimes from October 7th to avoid inquiry into abuse of Palestinians.
I have a question for Cameron. So in these confirmation hearings, we also heard Marco Rubio talk very candidly about mass migration being perilous to the Western world. I don't think that he really disguised any terms. Why is it that pretty much anybody in government, it's demanded of them that they're avowed Zionists, but Marco Rubio can come out there and just talk about how not illegal immigration, but mass immigration to the United States is perilous to our country? Why are we allowed to say that?
What? Ask your question one more time. I don't think I got it.
Well, I'm just wondering, like, everybody's talking now about mass immigration, not illegal immigration, mass immigration. And so that seems to become part of what is necessary for government officials to say. I think that the tables have turned a little bit on that. But as far as Zionism is concerned, I'm not hearing a lot of mainstream voices being anti-Zionist. So it's like you can talk about mass migration now, but you still have to be a Zionist, and you can't connect the two. Why is this?
Well, it's the difference between the elected officials, the elected class, and everybody else.
Mhm.
So if you're going to play ball in government, then you have to play by the rules. And it used to be that you couldn't talk about mass immigration, as you implicated a moment ago. I would say that was true until Donald Trump in 2016, maybe not even in 2016, maybe just a few years ago, that the term mass immigration has become anodyne. For a long time, that was part of the Great Replacement conspiracy. That was just in the imaginations of white supremacists. So that demonstrates a tremendous shift to the nationalist right that I think we've talked about. The Zionist bit is different, and it's different because that's the power source of the government, right? It's often attributed to Voltaire, but it's not. It's apocryphal. But he said those who you cannot talk about are in power. That's the answer to your question. Do I think that's going to change? I do think that's going to change. And I think to some degree it is already changing, but it's changing in the Democratic Party first, and eventually it will change in the Republican Party. But the answer, Rebecca, is that AIPAC and its affiliates and the Zionist project, if you will, they dominate the whole government. And I think they dominate the government today in ways that they never have before. At the same time, however, and this is important, I said this on Vince's show way back when, awareness of Zionism, which is the subject of this episode, frankly, and I would say increasingly topical among all age groups, especially younger people, that is becoming more and more mainstream. And I think we're getting close to that mainstreaming. We're knocking on the door for sure.
Aren't they playing a dangerous game, allowing us to talk about migration but not about Jewish influence? They're so inextricably linked. I think that's probably why we're seeing a loss of support for AIPAC.
The premise of that question is false. And this is a point I emphasize all the time. I know I belabor it, but they're not allowing anything. Okay. They're not in control. I say this often about central banks when it comes to market forces. Ultimately, the public is on a different wavelength. And as I've said before, awareness of what's going on, I think, in the minds of average Americans, average Frenchmen, average Germans, et cetera, has always been higher than people think. But now, especially since the 7th of October, since the genocide in Gaza, since this overreaction against the phantom of anti-Semitism, which I'm not even sure is on the rise necessarily in the United States or anywhere else per se, as much as it is calling attention to the genocide that's happening in Gaza and an awakening to the control of the Jewish lobby over our government. My sense is simply that there is a momentum that's building, and they lost control of that narrative a long time ago, perhaps in 2016 when Donald Trump became president.
Mm-hmm. And now we're seeing it affect the upper echelons of Zionist funding. Do you want to pull up this in these Times article? This was so good. Cameron sent this to the group. It was written in June 2024. It's this link right here. Is it possible that government support for Israel is falling apart? This, as in these Times report from June, it had some very interesting development. So it says basically that nearly 60% of AIPAC donors are CEOs and top executives from major corporations. We knew that. There's a deep connection between corporate America and AIPAC's political spending. They were expected to spend $100 million in 2022, 2020, or 2023, 2024. I would imagine that those numbers are confirmed at this point. And what we're seeing now is AIPAC trying to attack the squad, and we have seen some of this come to fruition. And I guess my question for Cameron is, do you think that they have made a grave error by pitting Zionists against these leftist zealots like the squad, and now it's going to destroy funding for Zionist causes?
Yeah, so let's talk about this for a moment, because I think this is a much bigger deal than people realize. We all tend to fall into our silos, and so we sort of lose touch with what's going on. If you tend to lean right, you're going to focus on right-leaning issues, right? And you tend to lose sight of what's happening on the opposite side. What's happening in both parties, what's happening, I think, across the Western world is fragmentation. The major headline parties the establishment parties, doesn't matter whether you're talking about the French establishment or the English establishment or in the United States, the two-party system, they're fragmenting. And that process, I think, started in 2008 with the global financial crisis, which I'll build on in just a moment. But let's talk about the Democrats for just a moment. The Justice Democrats really started in 2017. People like Cenk Uygur rallied very strongly behind Bernie Sanders. And there is a split. There is a kind of fissure in the Democratic Party between the old line Democrats. I would say that's Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, the Clintons, the sort of machine politics of the old Democrat elite, and the newbies. That includes the squad, and the squad basically represents the internecine conflict inside the Democratic Party. What do I mean by that? Well, you got the Black Caucus. Well, you have the Muslims. You have the Indian groups. It's this big tent that nobody really fits into anymore. And this is by virtue, again, of the Zionists that brought all of these groups here together, and seemingly they were unified against Whitey for a long time. Well, that appears to be breaking down, and I think the Justice Democrats are sort of the future of the Democratic Party. Now, where does Zionism fit into this? Well, a lot of the newbies in the Democratic Party that are gaining prominence, they're not pro-Israel. Okay. And furthermore, I think there's a split to some degree in the Jewish community itself, in which you see this sort of shift towards a new party that's more Bernie Sanders centric. That's only going to continue to get stronger. And I would say since October 7th, since the Gaza humanitarian disaster, it's only deepened that fragmentation. Now, on the right, and really what I took from this article, which everybody should read, is that basically the AIPAC institutions switch sides. They now have completely embedded in the political right, in Con Inc., as they call it, in the official incorporated MAGA movement, which is what Donald Trump represents. That's where the corporate Wall Street money has shifted. However, in the Republican Party, there is also a fragmentation. Yes, the GOP is corrupt and backward, so forth and so on. But the future of the Republican Party, the future of the right, if you will, is us. It's the dissident nationalist right, which again is anti-AIPAC. So this is the future politically, and this is where we're headed.
That's so crazy to think about. I mean, because like it's so totally true. Like you look at Trump donors, you look at Paul. We talked about this last week. Paul Singer donating to Trump. Like you have all this corporate money. I think Mark Zuckerberg is going to Trump's inauguration. Like people like this are going to.
Did you see him on Rogan?
I didn't know.
Oh yeah, he was just trying to backpedal. It's crazy that a Jewish guy that is literally autistic still has a higher verbal IQ than like your average person walking around in the street.
They have very high verbal IQs.
He's a robot.
They're very good with words.
But he was very good at kind of just acting like Facebook wasn't responsible for any of the censorship or anything like that.
Yeah,
he punted
put it
it
all
to
on
the
the
government.
government.
Yeah.
I'm still banned. Even my personal account is gone.
Oh,
Jeez.
So like all the pictures, all the kids' pictures, it's all. I mean, we had the Red Elephants page was massive,
Right.
like 500,000 people on that page. I still haven't gotten reinstated there.
I think that there is like a switch happening, and I think that people in the Republican Party are kind of oblivious to it. I mean, like when you look at things like Jewish Voices for Peace and other groups that are ostensibly leftist, but they're not supporting what's going on in Israel. They're not supporting the genocide. They are very anti-Likud, anti-Bibi Netanyahu. They're calling for a corruption trial. They're calling for trials about the intelligence issues that we had. What are you doing?
Look at this thing.
aren't you gonna burn yourself?
No, grab it. It's fine. I got it. Yeah, no, totally. And I don't know about the squad though, because every time that they're confronted by the media about their so-called anti-Semitic views, they tend to backtrack and apologize. Right? We saw with AOC, we saw this with Ilhan Omar when she said it's all about the Benjamins when talking about AIPAC. She had to come out and apologize for that. So they can't really do exactly what they want or say exactly what they feel. Right. But it is interesting what Cam pointed out about how you have this sort of fissure, this and you sort of have like a party switch when it comes to the corporatization, right, and the corporate money and where that corporate money is going. Why do you think it's going into the Republican Party? Because they support Israel.
Yes.
They have this undying support for Israel. Whereas like in the grassroots movement, right, the nationalists, the people who are on X, you know, we're saying, you know, Israel did 9/11 and the Mossad killed JFK and we're getting, and then you have these people that are on the right that are propped up in the conservative sphere that are trying to redirect the messaging of the MAGA movement, of the you know, the unwashed masses,
The woke right.
right, the woke right,
The James Lindsays of the world.
Yep.
That's exactly the issue, right? And see, what they're doing is they're riding a wild tiger. So, you know, all of these folks, AIPAC, they're all, in principle, they're all communists. There's nothing right-wing about them. They feel very uncomfortable with Trump in general, but they've had to cede territory because the left is in the midst of a civil war, because the left, as a monolithic party, the Democrats, are fragmenting. Now, again, I would argue the same thing is happening on the right, but MAGA is decidedly opposed to virtually everything in the Zionist project.
Right.
They simply think that they can covert or subvert, I should say, Donald Trump and avoid any backlash. Well, folks, I don't think it's going to go that way. And this program is evidence of that fact. I think the MAGA movement is quite real, and it was never just about Donald Trump. But again, bear in mind who you're talking about. You're talking about people like Bibi Netanyahu. You're talking about people like Greenblatt. And how they think about these things is there's always the head monster. There's always the figurehead, right? It's the same thing, the obsession with authoritarians overseas. Their view is if they can neutralize Trump, they neutralize MAGA. But in reality, they can't do that. And I think that's going to become very clear in the next few months.
Yeah, with the J6ers, they tried to take him out. And I think part of that was like trying to strike fear into the hearts of the Trump base, but at the same time, strike fear into the hearts of anyone who is going to form an alliance with Trump at the upper, like at the top level, right, in his administration.
Right.
Like a lot of the people that were very based are now gone. Maybe they have charges, they have criminal charges. A lot of them went to jail, right? A lot of them went to jail. And so I think this was sort of a tactic that they used to sort of to scare people away from, to scare the like actual conservatives away from the Trump administration and to scare the MAGA base. But again, like Cam said, it's sort of at the same time done the opposite.
I mean, look at this. We've even got General Flynn now, who's commenting about Greenblatt. This man is dangerous.
Oh, damn! I didn't see that.
Right?
Is that the actual? Is that his actual
is
account?
The actual Mike
Yeah.
Flynn account.
Oh, damn.
That's the real account. That is General Mike Flynn commenting on these clips that we played just earlier of Greenblatt saying this man is dangerous, and that is not exactly something that I would have expected General Flynn to have said. When I met him in Vegas, I specifically asked him about the counterintelligence issues with the Israelis. And he gave me like an interesting kind of like skirt around the bush answer, probably because he didn't know who I was. And he probably assumed that I was like a Zionist. But the way that he answered was like satisfactory enough to know that like he knows more than he's saying. And I'm not going to be that guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not going to be that like one guy in the room that's like, no, I need to know, you know? So I just kind of let it go. But these people all know what's up. They all know what,
That makes
especially
it
the
more
people,
infuriating, though.
especially
Worst
the people.
kept secret in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
What
but that's
Go ahead.
exactly the point, right, Dave? And these folks are followers, right? So again, why is Flynn doing that? Is it because all of a sudden he's figured this out? No, it's because the political winds are changing. And a lot of these folks who are thin-skinned, and I don't know Flynn, I'm not saying he is, but the majority of these folks certainly are, they sense that there's a shift underway. And it's becoming, as Rebecca alluded to earlier, it's becoming safer to talk about these issues. And I would argue it's at this point, it's unavoidable because, as I said, they've saturated the airwaves with their influence. And again, there's a double side to enforcement. Look, if you're going to escalate, then you've got to be able to enforce. Because if you don't enforce, if you don't do what you say you're going to do, all of a sudden your position weakens. And I don't think they've thought this through. Just as I said, Israel hadn't thought through what happened in Syria, what's happened against Hezbollah and Lebanon. It's The tactics are the same. Escalate, 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 escalate. Well, at some point, you have to anticipate a backlash. You have to anticipate a feedback loop. And it seems from their vantage point, they don't perceive that what they're doing is creating the very opposite of what they're trying to achieve.
I find that hard to believe because it's so obvious to people in the general public. And I feel like although they are subversive and nefarious, there's a lot of intelligence within the federal government. So when I hear you say this, my instinct is to be like, that can't possibly be right. But you know more than I do about these things.
Well, it is a healthy skepticism, right? Because it's very difficult to put yourself in their vantage point, but you have to bear in mind that their view is basically that they have total control, that they control the narrative, they control the money, they control the press, they control military power. Unfortunately, when you think in those terms, if you believe you have awesome power and there's no limit, there's no feedback loop, right? There's no counter thrust to what you do. This is the kind of approach that you take. But again, if you look at the state of Israel, just as an example, they have a very stark choice, right? Choice one is to try to make peace with 1 billion Muslims around you and create a state of equilibrium. That's a choice. That political choice died. They chose not to do that. Well, why didn't they choose to do that? Surely they know there are 1 billion Muslims around them. What's the alternative? Well, the alternative is exactly what we're seeing. It's genociding the Palestinians. It's creating an ethnic state. It's destabilizing the whole region. Has it not occurred to them that that's not in their interest to do? No. Why? Because that is their sort of frame of reference, that they are in total control, that they have awesome power. But Israel's a tiny country. It doesn't, right? And this is the nature of what we're dealing with. People that don't think there's any limits. Again, controlling social media, it's easier said than done. In a very large country like the United States or Europe, how are you going to enforce it? How are you going to censor everybody? They haven't thought it all through. You can recruit government agencies to do it if you want, but logistically speaking, legally speaking, how are you going to achieve that? It's very, very difficult to do.
Yeah. Wasn't there like some like head of the Israeli Defense Force or something back in 2004 who said that he wished that Hamas would attack Israel, or that he said something to that effect where he wished that it would happen so that they can just go full bore, so that they can just go. And yeah, I mean, that's their frame of reference, right? That's what they wanted to happen for a while, so that they could do. But again, you see this backlash, and unfortunately,
you guys can't help yourselves.
Yeah, I know. We got to use it.
Look at this. People don't know about this, but this is another big thing that people are going to have to figure out, that the Israeli government was actually funding Hamas. They were propping them up. They wanted them there. And this actually happened at the time when Fatah was still a party. They wanted to use Hamas as like a proxy to diminish the power of Fatah in Gaza, in the West Bank. And well, that worked. That worked like a charm, and Hamas took over the whole thing with the help of the Israelis. And people don't know that. And I think people are, now that we've got the ceasefire, we kind of have a moment to breathe and like, let's reassess what happened. Let's reassess the propaganda. Let's figure out what actually happened on October 7th. There's things that I'm hearing now about Al-Qaeda having funneled some of the weapons to Hamas. And of course, Al-Qaeda is a CIA cutout. Was the CIA involved in giving Hamas the weapons, tools, and training that they needed to commit October 7th, to give Benjamin Netanyahu the pretext to stay in power, avoid these legal issues that they were dealing with over there for the past 3 years? Because there was a whole bunch of like judicial corruption that was going on and being investigated, and he didn't want that. And obviously it was becoming much more difficult for them to create coalition governments over there in the Knesset. So this was like quite fortuitous, actually, for Netanyahu, to the point that people should be asking the question, who actually was behind the attack on October 7th?
That's so evil.
It's not too crazy. It's not too far-fetched.
Operation Northwoods. Look at
Operation Northwoods.
Our own government, the United States government, put out a white paper or a plan or whatever to use airlines, I think, to crash like an airplane to create a terrorist attack in America against American citizens.
Blame it on Cuba.
And blame it on Cuba as a pretext for war.
It happens all the time.
all the time.
Israel does it. I mean, they're like the best at it.
Right,
you look
right.
at the
All the
bombing
world's
of the
a
King
stage.
David Hotel and the Levant affair and so forth. You look at there was a time when ISIS attacked Israel and then they apologized. Remember that?
Oh yeah, that's right.
ISIS attacked Israel and then apologized. So it's not too crazy, not too far fetched.
Do you guys think
Look,
that we're seeing some subversion? Oh, go ahead, Cameron.
Just have to understand that a lot of these folks, they live in a very different universe than we do. They live in a Ptolemaic universe. We're in a Copernican universe. It's very difficult for a lot of these folks to imagine what the average middle-class white person lives like in the United States. They have no idea what the price of eggs are, what demographic change really means. If you're at a certain level of wealth and power in the United States, you're completely untouched by mass immigration. You don't feel the effects of inflation whatsoever. There is absolutely no regard for the boots on the ground experience that average people in this country have. And furthermore, there's contempt for the average person because your perception is that you have all this money, you have all this IQ, you are seemingly superior by virtue of having those things. So anybody beneath you who challenges your worldview, not just is ignorant, stupid, foolish, irrelevant, etc., but maybe immoral as well. And remember, that's the basket of deplorables. That's who we are to these folks. So of course they were surprised by Trump's victory in 2016. How could that possibly happen? We brainwashed all of these people. We flooded the country with a bunch of immigrants. How is it possible that there was any feedback? It never occurred to them that it would do the exact opposite. And here we are, they're doing the same thing.
Yep. And it never occurred to them that, white people are really the only group of people that vote consistently too.
Yeah.
Like, until that changes, the mass demographic, the demographic change that's been happening in this country isn't going to matter until quite some time from now. I mean, like a lot of people of color, whatever you want to call it, they stayed home. They didn't even vote this time.
Really?
They are adjusting tactics, though. I think that is what James Lindsay represents. It's this divergence within the right that's trying to destroy the right. As soon as I heard the term woke right, I was like, this came from the left. I just knew. I mean, it was because it's snappy and it's just a way to divide the right. And really what woke right means is it people that are talking about Israel?
They're trying to characterize people on the right that are critical of Israel as leftists.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And that's not true at all. It's just we aren't kahanists, okay? Like we're a couple of steps back from there, right?
Yeah, it's all the same people. It's all the same. A lot of the same people that are boosted up in the conservative sphere, the ones that have the biggest accounts, the biggest influence, the ones that are always on, the Glenn Beck show and so forth, and all these top conservative podcasts that are now trying to push this whole woke right meme, and they're all retweeting each other, and Ben Shapiro's involved in this, and basically what they're saying is that if X and other platforms continue to allow people on the right to talk about AIPAC and to talk about Israel's power that they have over our government and our foreign policy, that another Holocaust is going to happen. This is what these people are saying. In fact, there's a clip here. This is a space James Lindsay saying that the woke right's obsession with sexual degeneracy is going to lead to another Holocaust.
Let's see, can we, this is a long clip.
Yeah, the Nazis were burning books, and burning books is bad.
You could leave it
and
there.
And then they say, do you know what books they were burning? And they point out, factually, that the at least first books the Nazis were burning and the first things that they were terrorizing were actually transgender clinics and transgender books and books of sexual immorality. And they say, were they really that bad? And what they're glossing over here is that the entirety of the Nazi regime and its fallout, the millions of deaths, the grotesque world war that had to be fought to stop Hitler's march across.
First of all, stop it right there,
all of Europe
real quick.
And further, if he could, the whole area.
This is trying to sell the point that this is something that we were taught when we were kids, right? This is something that a lot of people still believe, is that we went to war to fight Hitler because of what he did to the Jews. This is what a lot of people still think.
Right.
The most of America was totally against going to war because they learned from what happened during World War I. They didn't want to see this happen. They didn't want to get involved in that war. 90+% of Americans were totally against getting involved in the war until Pearl Harbor happened. They thought that all this stuff that people were saying about what was going on with the Nazis was just war propaganda. World War I, they said that the Germans had babies impaled on bayonets.
Right. Bells and children or whatever, right?
So they didn't, like, what he's saying here is a complete lie. We didn't go to war to fight Hitler because of what he did to the Jews or whatever. We went to war because of
Pearl Harbor.
Which was questionable too. That was suspect too.
I believe we had advance warning on that.
Yes, my great uncle who fought in World War II, he used to tell my mom, like, we let that happen. Yeah. And at the time, everybody thought he was insane, but now we look back and we're like, huh. Uncle Bill, look at that.
Well, the Lusitania, World War I. You had the Gulf of Tonkin. You had what you were just talking about, the Operation Northwoods. I mean, we've done it so many times. So has a lot of other governments.
And 9/11.
Yeah, and 9/11.
Skip toward the end of this clip. I think skip about a third more of the way through.
To those of us who have the interest and the ability, students of history, we have to be able to tell these stories, and we have to be able to identify where the mistakes are being made in parallel to history and to explain why they were mistakes. And it's going to take an awful lot of us, because these guys, as Jesus, had the conversation with the demon in the Bible, these guys are legion. They are not one or two people. There are many people. And most frighteningly, in my opinion, they have the conservative movement, the popular conservative movement, maybe not all of MAGA, not the MAGA that's not online that much, but the people online, they've got them by the nuts. They've got them by the balls. How can you tell? Because try to get one of the conservative influencers to speak up against any of this. You've got me, you've got Seth Dillon. If you count him as a conservative influencer, you've got Konstantin Kisin, and you've run out of people. They won't speak up about it. They won't say a goddamn word about it because they know they're going to get targeted. They know that their money is tied to keeping their frickin' mouths shut about this. And the conservative movement is captured, and we are F-U-C-T if we don't get our heads out of our asses and get this to stop. And that's going to require people who will actually tell the stories, who will actually speak up, because our conservative influencer class will not. And do not wait for them. It will be too late. They won't say a damn word until it's safe. Not one.
Now, somewhere in this clip, I can't remember exactly where, he said that the obsession with sexual degeneracy on the right is going to lead to a Holocaust. This is what he says. Jeez. Now, the thing is that I found out later, I found this out today, that his stepdaughter.
No, there it is. Stepdaughter
was, had an OnlyFans account, reportedly, and also is bisexual. So it's starting to make a lot of sense. But you see people like James Lindsay, Ben Shapiro, this guy, Awesome Jew, who's now being propped up on X right now, and a whole bunch of other accounts that are saying the exact same things, that are tweeting each other, retweeting each other. And this is what we're dealing with here on the right. We've got all this money that it's like flowing to people like this that are trying to crush the popular, the truth, right? That a lot of this information that a lot of people are starting to find out for the first time ever, because it's been hidden from them for their entire lives. They're trying to suppress it, and they're really trying to get this woke right meme to stick. Let's
Look at
see.
this.
Yeah,
Look at this. James Lindsay. I voted for Clinton and was super proud to take my bisexual daughter with me to the occasion. What now? We checked out chicks' asses together. Bonding.
Oh.
Yo, that is like what? Like the people that are like, oh, you've got a weird sexual obsession on the right. It's like, we aren't the people that are like going out and like checking out girls' asses with our bisexual daughters. Actually, we're raising sons and daughters that are normal and not like weird sexual deviants. By the way, there's a lot about James Lindsay circulating in Idaho. Apparently, he had an affair while he was up here at one of his rallies.
I remember we were there.
Yeah,
I was there.
I didn't see it.
I don't know if you were there, but I wasn't at the affair.
Right.
I was at
the alleged affair. The alleged affair.
I was at that event, that Janice McGeehan event that he was at.
That's right.
And I actually took a selfie with him. Took a picture with him.
Wait, how can this guy even purport to be conservative? What about his stance?
Well, first of all, he blasphemed and took the Lord's name in vain. So anybody that's a Christian should immediately disregard everything that he has to say.
But how can he? Because he's an anti-communist?
Allegedly. He's not. I mean, he's running cover for communism.
Yeah,
he's running cover for these people.
Right. He'll never tell you who the communists were. He talks a lot about critical theory and critical race theory. Like he's given so many speeches about critical race theory, but he'll never tell you where critical race theory came from.
Right. He won't talk about like that the fact that every major political theorist at the Frankfurt Institute happened to be Jewish.
Right.
Like, that's interesting.
Because that'll lead to a Holocaust.
Right.
Have you seen his debunking of...
What they're alleging is that telling the truth will lead to a Holocaust, that it will lead to dead people because you speak the truth.
Didn't you have that tranny tweet go viral this week?
Yeah, there was a Oh, yeah, he was talking about the book burning, the Nazi book burning. Well, there was a tranny on MSNBC. It's actually in the notes. Notes. There was a tranny on MSNBC that said the same thing. It's actually kind of funny. Let's see if we can play this clip.
And there's been a rise in anti-Semitism.
Oh, come on.
All over the country right now, and it's disgusting and it's horrible. People should know that one of the first things that the Nazis did.
Oh my gosh! Look at that freeze frame.
Look
at that freeze frame.
I think it was in 1933 was they burned Magnus Hirschfeld's gender for sexuality. Magnus Hirschfeld was studying trans people, LGBTQ people, Lily Elby.
Why does it keep doing that?
Anyway, he goes on to talk about how the first trans surgery was conducted at that sexual science center, Magnus Hirschfeld Sexual Science. Look,
the Institute for Sexual Wissenschaft.
Yeah. So a lot of those people and the people from the Frankfurt School, right? They fled, and then they came over to Columbia University. Came over to the East Coast of the United States, and they spread that ideology, and it spread throughout the United States. And that's where critical race theory comes from. It's derived from critical theory. It comes from the Frankfurt School. It comes from these Jewish intellectuals. And this is something that James Lindsay will never talk. He won't even talk about AIPAC. He won't even admit that AIPAC has the power that they do. He was trying to debunk Ian Carroll earlier during the week when he was talking about this, and he reposted this tweet from Awesome Jew. And
this is what it was in response to. It was in response to Ian Carroll ratioing Elon Musk.
Yes.
And he asked, "What am I missing?" And then Ian Carroll went and laid the whole thing out beautifully.
How many likes did he get on that?
I can't find the original
tweet. It's just a
tweet.
screenshot. Yeah. And so he did like a video on it, and then James Lindsay tweeted out, "The woke right won't stay small for long," I think is what he said. And then Ian Carroll responded. Yeah, you could just go to that whole thread there. And if you click on that, who deleted? Oh, he deleted. Did he delete his post or did he block you?
Oh, there's
weird. Yeah, he says if AIPAC was as powerful as the Jew haters say, the Jew haters wouldn't be having their current field day. It's an upper mid-tier lobbying organization doing lobbying. Sometimes I wish it had the latter, though.
No, the laser.
Oh, that laser, though. I thought that was a typo.
No, I think that was on purpose.
Cam, is AIPAC a mid-tier lobbying organization?
$100 million.
It's largely insignificant. It doesn't do a whole lot. Yeah. Glorified nonprofit.
Seriously, you guys agree with this? They're highly influential.
No, he's just joking.
Oh, I was like,
he's being.
It's not like they, helped 90% of our current legislature in Congress get elected. It's not like,
They're the most powerful lobbying group in the United States. I mean, you put AIPAC up with Big Pharma, right? That's how powerful they are. And if you oppose them, they will primary you. They'll destroy you with funding. They have a whole range of organizations, nonprofits, and they're not the Lone Ranger. They have other front organizations that they use, and they're decades old. They know exactly how the political system works. They are the machine politics of the Zionist movement, and they are embedded in the U.S. government, and they have been for a long time. This is why our foreign policy never changes, as everybody on the panel knows. So in order for us to create a MAGA movement to get back to America first, we're going to have to talk about them, and we're going to have to talk about the subversive influence that they have. It's just that it is built into the architecture of American politics today.
Some people have been able to withstand AIPAC's influence. Summer Lee was able to. I think that they targeted her, and she was reelected. So I don't know. Maybe they have less power now than they have in previous election cycles.
As I said, I think there's fragmentation that's happening. Fragmentation on the left and fragmentation on the right. The other thing is this, even though AIPAC is basically an institution of the U.S. government at this stage, they're bringing awareness to their influence and power in the government. And that's working against them. It's much better to operate in the shadows. That combined with what's happening in Gaza, I think has raised tremendous awareness to their pernicious influence over our foreign policy because we're abetting a genocide in Gaza. That's what's happening. Those two things combined, their sort of consolidation of power. Netanyahu shows up to Congress, he gets 40 standing ovations from a horribly divided Congress that can't agree on anything except that, combined with the brutality that's been meted out to the Arab population in Gaza. Those two things absolutely have eroded their control, certainly their control of the narrative. But the larger issue with Lindsay and the rest of this is, look, these folks, as we said, the alphabet soup of organizations, it's political subterfuge, right? That's what these folks do very well. It's propaganda. It's controlling academia to some degree. But that's not what moves the needle politically. Most people are worried about inflation. They're worried about getting a job. They're worried about paying off their college loans, so forth and so on. So talking about transgender rights and things of that nature, it's very marginal. And it's never going to become the mainstream or dominant issue that they think. Hollywood is a perfect example of this. They have tried desperately to subvert Marvel movies, to push progressive policies, to push transgenderism, and it's failed every single time because the mainstream of American culture, and I would argue cultures around the world, they just don't want it. They reject it.
And I think it's a losing proposition for younger generations because they've been inundated since birth with transgender theory and they've watched it ruin their peers' lives. And I think that they're really developing resentment towards the powers that be. And so I think that this is not a good idea. I don't think that they're going to make any waves.
They're really trying to normalize it though still. Like the Squid Games thing we talked about last week.
Yeah.
I mean, they're really trying. I mean, they're going harder than they've ever gone before. Like you've got like, before it was just like sort of like, oh, gays, okay, but we can't show them too much. Like they knew to take it slow in Hollywood. They knew to take it slow in commercials and in movies. So you'd have like a gay couple, and then the gays would complain that, well, you didn't really see the gay couple. They weren't like a part of the story. And then they become like a main part of the story. Yeah. And now they're like straight up like kissing. Like they're like kissing. Gay dudes kissing.
You remember
on TV.
Dawson's Creek? Remember the scandal? I still
remember
remember
Dawson's Creek.
I think it was the very first gay kiss, I guess, broadcast on American television, and it was an uproar from like normal. I think it was in like the late '90s, if I'm not mistaken. I remember living in Columbus. I don't know why, but anyway,
you're aging us.
I'm about to turn
us.
36 this week.
Dawson's Creek. I remember Dawson's Creek.
But
That's
I mean, Vince, you're right. I saw this just came out today. That some student at the University of Idaho is looking for butch and or soft mask stud gay lesbian women to study, and this is at like the University of Idaho. Like this,
which is in
this is
where's
like
that
an
at?
Agriculture Boise, but it's like agriculture and mining type.
Did I tell you about my nephew's school?
No.
So he told me this when he was 13. And in his school, half of the people identify as some part of the LGBTQA spectrum. And 1 out of 6 is transgender. And then there was a girl that had top surgery before she had gone through puberty. So she must have been 13.
Oh.
Yeah. 1 out of 6 transgender. A lot of kids on hormone therapy too.
Yeah, that's what they want. They want to normalize this stuff with the younger generation. That's why they can't have you go off the rails about certain things on TikTok anymore. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
no. And when I say a lot of these things, people sort of they straw man me and they'll say, "Well, what are you saying? The propaganda doesn't have any effect, or that younger generations haven't imbibed a lot of this poison." You're exactly right, Rebecca. They have. It's destroyed a lot of these kids' lives. There's no question about that. Never mind the suicides. from a lot of these transgender kids whose lives are completely ruined if they survive at all. So it does make a difference. It is important. I'm not saying it's not. That being said, it produces a kind of counter thrust because of the damage that's done. And it's very, very difficult to completely change the mainstream thinking of a population. And remember, historically speaking, propaganda only got you so far. Then you had to use censorship. Then you had to gulag people if they disagreed with you. That's how all the communist projects ultimately ended. Why? Because the propaganda fails. It fails once you sort of bump up against that, I would call it the spiritual force field around human beings that naturally have an aversion to the sin that they're selling in this case. We, in my view, are sort of at the leading edge of that counter thrust. That's what you're beginning to see happen. And I think it's going to start making political landfall soon. I don't know how soon, but I think soon.
Yeah. I know we want to get on to Trump's inauguration and the super chats. And by the way, super chat the show, the backlash.net/super chat. You can use Power Chat. There's a bunch of ways you can super chat the show. We're going to have a super chat segment. Before we move on to that, I did want to say one other thing about the whole James Lindsay thing. And it was the argument that he had with Ian Carroll on Twitter about he retweeted he shared this tweet from Awesome Jew. I know I have a link somewhere in there.
Here, it's this one. I'll highlight it.
Yeah, that one there. There you go. So this is another account this account doxed Ian Carroll's parents. So he basically said he said where Ian Carroll's parents live. He's still verified. He's still monetized.
Jeez.
And he gives this debunking of... Now, look at the first point here. The first point is AIPAC purchased 90% of Congress and JFK wanted them registered as a foreign agent. So this debunking, which totally ChatGPT generated, says that AIPAC didn't exist while JFK was president. Now, the thing is that it did exist. It was part of the American Zionist Council. And JFK absolutely tried to get them to register under FARA.
Yep.
And you probably know.
Just 3 months before he was shot.
Right, interestingly enough. During the time when he was trying to get Israel to...
The timing is a little suspect.
Yes.
Just a little obvious.
Yeah. Odd. Not only was he trying to get AIPAC to register as a foreign agent, but also he was, at the same time... He was also trying to get Israel to agree to an investigation into their Dimona nuclear plant.
Right.
He died months later.
Right. And there was a back and forth. You can go into the archives and look at it. There was this very heated back and forth between David Ben-Gurion and JFK, where JFK's like, hey, we're not really interested in selling you any Hawk missiles. That seems like a little much. Why don't you let us in Dimona, and then we'll talk about selling you some Hawks. But, we totally support you guys. We just want to know what's going on at Dimona. And this kind of escalated to the point where David Ben-Gurion resigned. And within, I think, a couple of weeks from his resignation, JFK got assassinated.
Yep.
Now, of course, there's this new clip that's going around of Saul somebody. He was an assistant of Lyndon Johnson, who's talking about how Lyndon Johnson ordered the hit on JFK. But there's a lot of questions about Lyndon Johnson's grandmother, from what I understand. And the fact that Lyndon Johnson was also a committed, avowed Zionist on the record. The policy definitely did not go against them. It went straight for them, right?
And you could say the CIA killed JFK. You could say that
the
all day long.
military-industrial complex,
right?
Yeah.
But you can't say the Mossad killed JFK.
Right. And it's interesting, too, with that movie, JFK, that came out in, was it 1991? How, everybody was mentioned. The CIA, the FBI, everybody but Mossad. And what's interesting is Jim Garrison, the lawyer that was investigating the JFK assassination, actually came up with a manuscript of what he thought happened, as a movie. Right? He was going to shop it around as a movie. And in the manuscript, he identified Mossad as the primary agents behind the assassination. Now, of course, that manuscript is gone, and nobody has it. It got I forget if it got stolen or whatever. I'm sure somebody can look it up. But that happened, And a lot of people that Jim Garrison spoke with also said that Garrison held that the Mossad had something to do with it. But curiously,
producer
in
of
the
that
1991 movie, Arnon Milchan, the
Arnon
producer,
Milchan,
definitely didn't let any of that into the script, and they managed that narrative.
He was a Mossad agent.
Yes, he
Arnon
was.
Milchan.
Arnon Milchan was the most prolific nuclear arms smuggler in history. He smuggled all of the nuclear trigger devices from America to Israel through Aramco, I think was the name of his company. And he was doing that all the while he was producing these films. And a lot of the films, one of them even, which came out in like the early 1970s, it was one of the first films that he produced, features this
Medusa's
plane
Touch.
flying into a building and blowing it up a la 9/11 in like 1971, the Medusa Touch. That's
Medusa's
the name of the movie.
Touch, yeah.
And, and then for Arnon to come out and very publicly admit that he was a Mossad spy is also like highly irregular. I'll see if I can pull that up.
These are the producers that we have in Hollywood,
Yeah,
by
really.
the way, creating this narrative about very important topics. I mean, as important as the assassination of JFK. And I remember that Cameron said something earlier about how, he said, do you think that these people are just finding out about these things?
Right.
Like Michael, like Flynn and others? Well, I would say I'll just say this very briefly. Let me ask this. What position did Roger Stone have in the Trump administration? Does anyone know? What position did
Cameron.
Roger
he was an
Stone?
advisor.
Yeah, was
wasn't
just an advisor.
I thought didn't he help work on the campaign with Finkelstein, Arthur Finkelstein?
I don't know exactly what position that Roger Stone had, but he wrote this book about the assassination of JFK, and his book was mainly about the CIA's involvement in the assassination of JFK.
Didn't you talk to him about this?
I did talk to him about this on Twitter. I said, why wasn't he mentioned something about the Mossad? He mentioned something about Israel, and I was like, whoa, this is new. I've never seen him talking about this before.
Yeah.
And I actually met him at some get together in Orange County. It was with like the Proud Boys or something, and I sort of snuck a few things into the conversation that were related to this. And he said something about the Mossad on Twitter fairly recently. And I was like, why didn't you mention the Mossad being involved in the assassination of JFK in your book about the assassination of JFK? And he responded to me on Twitter and he said, I didn't know about that at the time, but it's going to be in my second volume, the second version of my book. So
If he did, it's deleted. It's not there anymore.
Maybe he didn't. Maybe he didn't know. I mean, boomers kind of like don't know this stuff. It's like, or it's sort of like in their subconscious. Anyway, what were you going to show?
We should try to. I was going to show that if he did tweet about it, it's gone. He deleted the tweet, but we should try to get Roger on the show because I want to ask him about Watergate and the connections.
Oh, I've got
there.
some questions for Roger Stone.
I like Roger Stone.
No,
he
Watergate's
follows
crazy.
me on Twitter.
Seriously?
He's great. I like him.
What kind of questions do you have for Roger Stone?
I have a lot of questions. I'm not gonna lay them out here.
Like what? How much money do you have in your bank account?
Yeah, I want to ask him about his swinging
How
lifestyle.
tall are you?
He reads like a short man. I will say.
He has impeccable style, though. I don't know if you've seen what he's planning on wearing to the inauguration.
It's gay. It's all
top
super
hat,
gay.
very
Nope.
nice. He does a top 10 list of the best and worst dressed.
That's
I
ridiculous.
enjoy that
ridiculous.
a lot.
Watergate's crazy, by the way. The whole Nixon thing. Like a lot of people don't know the Nixon tapes and what he was talking about when it comes to Jewish power and Israel's control over our government. And then Bibi Netanyahu, the last time he came to the U.S., he stayed at the Watergate Hotel. Did you know that? Did you notice that?
He always brings his dirty laundry.
He does. Yeah.
He does.
brings
I've
it.
heard that he
a
brings his dirty
suitcase of
laundry.
Dirty laundry.
I have a question for Cameron. Do you think that Trump knows all of this? Do you think that Trump has an advisor that has been telling all of this to him for years?
Of course. Yeah, I think I'm not an expert on Trump's background, but Rory Cohn was instrumental in making Donald Trump into who he is today. He made his career as a real estate guy in New York City. Of course he knows. And given the relationship of his daughter with Kushner, among others in his family, he's well apprised of it. My guess is he was aware of it as a young man, probably by virtue of his dad. So no, I'm sure he's well aware. Look, everybody in DC, New York, LA, anybody that wants to be competitive politically is aware of this. Now, I do think Vince is right that in flyover country, it's quite different. There, you'll see a lot of folks that are really unaware of these things. Although even now, I think that's beginning to change. But no, these folks like Flynn, yeah, absolutely, they are privy to what is happening, who really runs the show. And that's why everybody stood up and cheered when Netanyahu came to see Congress last summer.
It was a bit of a rhetorical question, but do you think that they're having a bit of a falling out, Trump and Netanyahu?
Well, according to this headline from Unheard, they say, has Trump fallen out with Netanyahu?
And he did not invite him to the inauguration.
Did he not invite him, or did Netanyahu's team say that he wasn't going to attend?
No, he was not invited.
Oh, now that's interesting.
He unfollowed Trump on Twitter.
Ooh,
After 2020, remember that when that happened? Didn't he unfollow him?
Netanyahu was the first person to congratulate Joe Biden on his win.
Right.
Which I thought was kind of interesting. And Donald Trump, I think, mentioned something about that at the time, how, their greatest ally is the very first one to stab him in the back during a stolen election and accept the fraudulent results that's going to get us banned from YouTube. The fraudulent results that put this geriatric
we take
senile
it back. We're
freak.
just joking.
I'm kidding. 2020 was the most secure election of all time, and the vaccines were safe and effective.
Yeah, and Trump and Netanyahu is a great dude.
Well, okay, let's watch this Jeffrey Sachs video, because Trump shared this on Truth Social, which I found confounding.
Right. This video was pretty spicy, actually. I was very surprised to see this come out.
He's on Judge Nap all the time, isn't he? Yeah.
We're on Truth.
Let's see if this works.
Really?
War in Syria. And you may actually hear from grown-up reporters who are lying through their teeth or ignorant beyond imagining that, the war in Syria, yes, Russia intervened in Syria. Well, do you know that that Obama tasked the CIA to overthrow the Syrian government, starting 4 years before Russia intervened? What kind of nonsense is that? And how many times did the New York Times report on Operation Timber Sycamore, which was the presidential order to the CIA to overthrow Bashar al-Assad? 3 times in 10 years. This is not democracy. This is a game, and it's a game of narrative. Why did the U.S. invade Iraq in 2003? Well, first of all, it was completely phony pretenses. It wasn't, we were so wrong, they didn't have weapons of mass destruction. They actually did focus groups in the fall of 2002 to find out what would sell that war to the American people. Abe Schultzke, if you want to know the name of the PR genius. They did focus groups on the war. They wanted the war all the time. They had to figure out how to sell the war to the American people, how to scare the shit out of the American people. It was a phony war. Where did that war come from? You know what? It's quite surprising. That war came from Netanyahu, actually. You know that? It's weird.
Holy shit, Trump tweeted this out?
He put on Truth Social, yeah.
Had from 1995 onward the theory that the only way we're going to get rid of Hamas and Hezbollah is by toppling the governments that support them. That's Iraq, Syria, and Iran. And the guy's nothing if not obsessive. And he's still trying to get us to fight Iran this day, this week. He's a deep, dark son of a bitch. Woo! Because he's gotten us into endless wars, and because of the power of all of this in the U.S. politics, he's gotten his way.
The power.
But that war was totally phony. So what is this democracy versus dictatorship? Come on. These are not even sensible terms. The war in Syria.
What the hell?
What do you make of this?
I'm so glad that I have you guys. I've never seen this. I didn't know that Trump put this on Truth Social. That's crazy.
Do I need to go get my MAGA hat and start putting the MAGA hat on again?
Absolutely not. But then we know his inner circle is infiltrated. We all went through this Whitney Webb article. What about Lutnick?
Oh, hold on a minute. Before we get to that.
But Biden has been better for Israel than Trump did, for sure.
So we've got, within like a week, right, we've got this Donald Trump tweeting out this video calling Netanyahu a deep, dark son of a bitch, which I would give my approbation to that statement. I would give my full endorsement to that he is a deep, dark son of a bitch. The guy targeted me and my
how are
family.
there's no, what, hold on a second. There's no media headlines about this video that
Yes,
Trump
there was.
tweeted. But it wasn't like blown up.
Yes, it was.
I don't remember. How do I'm on Twitter all the time. How do I not?
Well, then this is the importance of doing shows like this, frankly.
Yeah.
And why getting together in person with your friends is so important, because they put us in these algorithms that silo us and keep us from seeing
I follow
these
all
very
the same
important
people
things.
you follow. I follow all the same
Well, then you
people
got to get your screen time up, buddy.
Maybe.
Your numbers aren't big enough. You've got to be doing 10 hours a day of just mind-numbing scrolling,
Just
getting complete brain rot.
Yeah.
But so he tweets out this video calling him a deep, dark son of a bitch. And then within like a week, we've got the acceptance of a ceasefire agreement in Israel. And by the way, it has finally come out that this ceasefire agreement, nope, that was the wrong one. The ceasefire agreement has been on the table for the past 8 months. And Netanyahu has scuttled it at every turn because of exactly what I said.
Are they being tinfoily, Cameron? Are these things related?
Okay, so I don't know any more than the rest of you guys, unfortunately. I think your word, the adjective you used, Rebecca, confounded, is the appropriate one. However, as best as I can glean from what I have seen, and my understanding of Israeli politics is as follows. And I suppose the mind of Donald Trump. Let's start with Trump for a minute. Trump is very sensitive to what people say on social media about him.
Yes, he is.
Pays attention. You know, he gets into skirmishes with people, sort of like an overgrown child. It's one of the reasons I don't like the guy. I think he sort of self-destructs because he's so thin-skinned often. So my own read of this, and I hope I'm wrong, I hope Dave is correct, is that there's a lot of criticism of Trump from the MAGA side, from the dissident right, about his cabinet, about his flirtation with giving the Israelis whatever they want, coupled with growing criticism of Israel and what they have done and our complicity in their genocide. So how do you respond to something like that if you can't really take action? You send out something like this, okay? Now, in addition to that, Netanyahu is a fairly irascible person. He never had a good relationship with Barack Obama. He tends to be very loud. He bullies people. He's lectured to U.S. presidents in the past. Is it possible that he and Trump don't have a good relationship? Yeah, that could be the case as well. However, what is this not? I do not see this as a permutation in American-Israeli relations whatsoever. Netanyahu is still in power. He still has a program. He still has an agenda. And all of the AIPAC power that we discussed previously on this episode still remains. Now, as to the ceasefire, supposedly his Mideast envoy, I should say Donald Trump's Mideast envoy, a guy named Stephen Wyckoff, had a fairly combustible conversation with Netanyahu. And the result of that conversation, at least what the press is saying, is that we got this tentative agreement on the ceasefire. Now, I don't know that this ceasefire will persist. In fact, I don't think that it will. But my sense is that what Trump is doing here is he's virtue signaling. So until we see real follow through with a change of personnel, until we see armaments stop being shipped over to Israel, until we see our military posture change in the region, then I wouldn't put any stock in this whatsoever. Remember, ceasefire deals come and they go. So there's nothing to prevent Netanyahu, so long as he's prime minister, from breaking this agreement later. The real question is not the ceasefire. It's whether or not the Israelis are ultimately going to carry forth and attack Iran. That still is very much on the table. But there could be some kind of personal friction between Trump and Netanyahu. If it's not that, I think he's virtue signaling. That's what I think this is all about.
Do you think that he's had it? So let's say he's had a falling out with Netanyahu. Do you guys think that he had a falling out with Jared Kushner? You think that?
I doubt it. He has to keep it together.
Well, I think there's a split, and I've been saying this. I kind of alluded to it when we were talking about Chabad earlier. I think that there's a split in the Jewish community of those who understand that, like, hey, wait a minute, we live in America. If we are sacrificing everything for Israel, look at what's happening to us here, right? Like, they see these reports that anti-Semitism is going up. And I think that there's a vein of people in the Jewish community that see that happening and
They're
are
like, whoa,
are
slow
like,
down.
Whoa, hold up, time out. We got to
down.
get rid of this guy. We got to get rid of Netanyahu. Let's get like Benny Gantz or like, who is the other one? Naftali Bennett. Get somebody more moderate in. I mean, even though they're not really moderate, they still both subscribe to the Greater Israel Plan, but they might appear less corrupt. They might appear more moderate, and kind of give a cooling off period to allow the public to forget what has happened over the past, 18 months. So I think that
What do
there
they call
is
it? A pressure valve?
pressure release.
Pressure release.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Netanyahu getting ousted would be good for Israel and good for America. Who replaces him? Is it going to be as corrupt, as bad as Netanyahu is? Is it going to be somebody that's maybe more pro-America, somebody who is more interested in fixing and the relations between Israel and its neighbors, and then allowing America to kind of reset manufacturing and the economy back here at home? I mean, there might be some split and some tension in the Jewish community. At least I'm feeling that.
So you're right that such a split, I do think, exists. But as I said earlier, the folks that are of the mindset that you're suggesting, that want to moderate what's happening, or at least de-escalate what Israel's doing, they tend to be on the left. They're not the people around Donald Trump, not
Correct.
people like Howard Lutnick, who's very close to the president and is hawkishly supportive of Netanyahu. I don't see any evidence that there's a break from that. That being said, Netanyahu could have pissed off Donald Trump. That's very possible. And maybe Trump has figured out that it's a liability for him, particularly if Netanyahu basically demanded that the United States support an attack on Iran. Maybe Trump is smart enough to realize how detrimental that is to his presidency. Regardless, the tweet is not policy, right? And this is what Americans have got to figure out. If you're going to implement change, you need programmatic change. You need personnel that reflect what you want to do. You have to implement actual policies like withdrawing forces, like cutting off armaments. If you see those things, then there will be real substance behind this. Otherwise, this is just some stupid tweet.
Yeah, and and I think about this sometimes. Barron Trump, he got Trump to go on Aiden Ross.
Yeah.
He got Trump to go on what other shows did he go on like that? It was Aiden Ross, it was Joe Rogan, it was a few others.
It was not Call Her Daddy.
Right.
He did not go on Call Me
Barron,
Daddy.
you think Barron Trump and like Jared Kushner have like arguments about like about the Jews or something?
I hope so.
You think like Barron Trump's talking in his dad's ear about, he sent him that Jeffrey Sachs video, and then Trump was like, whoa, let me tweet this. Let me tweet this. Let me put this on Truth Social real quick.
I don't know.
We have to wonder, like, because Barron Trump knows. Like, Barron
Yeah,
Trump
he's got
knows.
to. He's in the generation.
Well, you even saw, was it Netanyahu's son that posted that one meme of like the Jew, I snorted. It was like a Jew, like with a fishing line controlling a lizard.
Oh,
it was
yeah.
like controlling.
Right. Yep.
I'll have to see if I can.
I don't think it
What
matters
you-
who's in control
what
in
you have to
Israel.
ask
Oh,
is,
go ahead.
What is significant? Is it Donald Trump's tweet? And again, look, the tweet was explosive. And I agree with you, Rebecca. It is somewhat confounding because the visceral nature of what Sachs said about Netanyahu was extreme, and it's accurate. It's the truth. So how do you square that with Hegseth's question about whether or not he's a Christian Zionist and
Right.
doubling down on it?
Yes.
And basically, look, that was probably the only make or break moment of his testimony. Just think about that. Is basically his commitment to a foreign country. Which of these two things is more significant? I think it's Hegseth. I don't think it's the tweet.
Yeah.
Should we talk a little bit about Lutnick? This Whitney Webb article was a behemoth, but it was a super good read for those of you that are in it. Is this it? Hold on, I
This
can't.
is it. Yeah, Howard Lutnick and the commandeering of the
I am
Department of
so
Commerce.
blind. I should bring my glasses.
No, nope,
What? Come on.
No, you're not allowed.
not allowed.
Come on, guys. I really need them. Let's talk a little bit about Lutnick and his business interests and how he's clearly compromised. Dave, we've talked about this offline, has some interesting theories.
I'm a Lutnick fanboy. I don't know. Maybe I won't be a Lutnick fanboy after this episode, but I
talk to Cameron about it. Okay, so Lutnick's company, Cantor Fitzgerald, broad international operations, supports global initiatives like the UN Sustainable Development Goals. It's also involved with foreign state-owned companies, raising questions about conflicts of interest, especially given his previous links to controversial figures like Epstein. He owned the home next door.
He bought that home next door from, I forget who. I think it was somebody at JP Morgan. I can't remember. It's in the article, but I think he only paid $10 for the house, which was kind of weird.
Fanboy, you say?
Well, you see, he's into Bitcoin.
Oh my God, what is wrong with you? Okay.
And I really like Bitcoin. And so Howard Lutnick's company, Cantor Fitzgerald, which is one of the 24 banks that does securities trading with the government, they are the ones that are holding all of the United States treasuries that power Tether. So basically, an investor will give a $100,000 treasury note to Tether that carries a coupon. Tether collects the coupon and uses that to pay their staff. And then in return, they issue you these Tether tokens, which can be used on payment rails to be able to switch back and forth between Bitcoin and US dollars for trading purposes. So the Cantor Fitzgerald is holding all of Tether's stuff, but Tether is awesome. They're great. I mean, I spoke with people at Tether about whether we could use Tether for Kanye.
Yeah,
and they said, as long as you're not breaking any financial laws.
But it's not his only financial interest. So Satellogic, where he also has interest, they have potential for leveraging the Department of Commerce, especially in areas like Earth observation, which sounds like massive surveillance.
Yes.
There's like massive surveillance projects. Like I don't see any way that this could possibly be good. This is your Bitcoin boner that is clouding your judgment.
But it could go to $1 million bond.
Oh my God.
It could go to $1 million.
Okay, Cameron, can you get in here? This is retarded.
Well, while I appreciate your enthusiasm for Bitcoin is not Tether. I think there's an important distinction to make there.
True.
Whitney Webb does basically make the case, as she does in most of her articles, that Lutnick is the tip of a spear to create a global surveillance state, a global panopticon that tracks everything you do, say, et cetera, et cetera. I don't really think that that's accurate, but that's neither here nor there. The question is Lutnick part of the MAGA team? Who does he really represent? And I think Whitney Webb does a good job of saying, look, Lutnick signed on for Trump because Trump told his wife that he was going to be the best president for Israel. Okay, that's the first thing. He is a hawkish supporter of the Israeli state, one of the major donors to AIPAC and other Zionist groups. That is his principal frame of reference. That's why he's in the White House. Now, I do think it's noteworthy that the original position that I understand he was vying for was to be the Treasury Secretary, and he did not get that position. I don't know why. That's interesting, and maybe we'll find out later on. But it looks like he's going to lead the Commerce Department, which is going to empower him through various bureaucracies to advance the interests of Cantor Fitzgerald and their various investments in companies that you mentioned. So the question is, what's he doing there? Well, my sense is that basically he represents the corporate Zionist elite in the United States and AIPAC. That's why he's there. And he's sort of shepherding the Trump administration so that it reflects that posture. This is the nature of the problem that we face. Now, one other issue here that I do think is noteworthy is that Whitney Webb makes a case that he's also there to sort of evangelize cryptocurrency as another escape valve to protect the dollar. I don't really think that that's the case. But what I do think is important to point out is that this is another of the financial elite. So when you think in terms of who's running the country, who's running the Western world, it is very definitely the financial banking elite. And that's what Howard Lutnick is a part of. And that's what's really pushing this war against Russia. It's what's escalating tensions with the Chinese. It's what's supporting a war against Iran. And why? Because their objective is to set up a global financial state so they can commoditize humanity. It's an old plan. It's certainly something that Howard Lutnick is a part of, and it's a big red flag for the Trump administration. No question about it.
So do you think that these overtures to, I don't know, just some anti-Netanyahu sentiment or just to appease his populist position, you think it's virtue signaling like you said before?
It seems like it is virtue signaling, but again, whether it is or it is not, and again, look, whether Trump thinks one thing or another is just not terribly meaningful. What is he actually going to implement as president? Where's the program? Where's the staff that's going to close the border? That's going to deport illegal immigrants? That's going to withdraw our forces overseas?
True, yeah.
As far as I can tell, I don't see any substance. I see a lot of talk. I see tweets like this, but that's how Donald Trump has always been. So I guess what I'm saying is there's a lot of bluster, but there's no follow through. Let's see if there's follow through before we assume that there's any significance to this other than virtue signaling.
Yeah, it's like what you talk about with machine politics. It's like you got to have the machine set up before you even get in. It's like the Clintons had their machine set up before they even got in. The Bushes had their machine set up before they even got in. They had exactly who was going to do what, because they can't govern by, and, much less Trump. I mean, Trump wasn't a politician. He didn't know how to govern. He governed. He didn't know how to execute his agenda. So in order for him to execute his agenda, he has to have people around him who know how the system works, who know how politics work, the machine. Right? The Clintons had their machine. They had exactly who was going to do what. The Bushes had their machine. The people in the Department of Defense in the Bush administration, the people that wrote the clean break memo, those people, as soon as they wrote that memo addressed to Bibi Netanyahu, they got into the Bush administration directly after that. In the Defense Department, they were part of the machine. Bush knew exactly who he wanted to do what. Trump doesn't really know who he wants. He's just sort of like I said, do you think, I think these conversations happen. You got Barron Trump, like, hey, we got to go on Aiden Ross. Who's Aiden Ross? Well, he's this, he's this, like Barron Trump sending memes to Trump, sending videos. I think that's like what literally happens, which is funny, but also sucks at the same time.
What this does demonstrate unequivocally, though, and this to me is the takeaway with Donald Trump, is that he's not ignorant, right? I don't think the man is very smart, but sending out that tweet, which you're calling attention to, rightfully so, demonstrates that information is getting to him, that he is aware of what is going on. So if he doesn't implement changes based on sending a tweet like that, what does that tell you about who's really running the U.S. government, about who's really in power, and whether or not Donald Trump is a free agent in all of this? That is really, to me, the heart of the issue.
That's true. And it says something about us that we're knowing everything that we know, we're still enticed by the stuff that he says that we know has no substance. I even got a little excited about that.
That was the first time I ever saw that.
The clip of the Sachs.
That he tweeted it.
Or he tweeted
it. Yeah, I truthed it, whatever.
Well, so there's some other issues with Lutnick. I've got some weird conspiracy theories. I forgot to bring the tinfoil down.
Keep it short, buddy.
Put a hat on.
Is Howard Lutnick, he's Jewish, right?
Yes, very.
Okay.
Yeah,
so this is the article that says the pro-Israel champion.
Browser, this one. The pro-Israel champion leading Trump's transition team. And then this was Howard Lutnick with Donald Trump at the grave of the Rebbe just the day before, this was on October 7th of this year. And they handed them some note, and they're reading the note, and then they rip the note up and throw it in the grave. It's kind of weird.
What are all those notes?
I don't know. Somebody wrote it and handed it to him, and then he rips it up and throws it away. But one of the things that's
mannerisms.
One of the things that I keep kind of coming back to is that Howard Lutnick was Cantor Fitzgerald was initially housed on the 93rd floor or whatever floor the plane hit in 9/11. That's where Cantor Fitzgerald was housed, and Howard Lutnick's brother worked together with him at Cantor Fitzgerald. We know that text messages were sent out to people who were Jewish who worked in the World Trade Center through a Israeli chat app called Odigo. They were warned not to show up to work the next day. Now, Lutnick was taking his son to his first day of school on that day, so he wasn't there, but his brother was. Now,
maybe he
if
really
Lutnick-
hated his brother.
I mean, maybe he really hated his brother, but I think maybe that Lutnick was just like not one of the Jews that was in with like Larry Silverstein. You know what I mean? That he wasn't in with the crowd that was pulling that thing off, right? That there are factions within the Jewish community and that he wasn't warned. He wasn't, and they didn't care about him. And is it possible that maybe he's got a chip on his shoulder for the people that pulled that off and knows about the economic and financial and real
So he really
terrorism
was
that
taking
happens?
his kid to
He really was taking his kid to his first day of school. At least that's what he says.
So that's
it's
his
a
real
better story than the Larry Silverstein. Well, my wife told me to go to a dermatology office, and so I went to the dermatology office to see if I had cancer, and well, I didn't have cancer. But then the planes hit, and well, I got the insurance money. So it's like literally what he said.
Wasn't his daughter out too that day? Didn't she have a doctor's appointment too, or
Yeah,
something?
I think
Or-
we
yeah.
did. You should go to see the dermatologist today. Okay, honey, I'll go.
Cameron, what do you think about this? What do you think about this?
I really have no idea, but I think Lutnick's a bad guy. And
Yeah, I'm
when
with you.
when I found out he was in charge of the transition team, again, these are the details that matter. Set aside the noise, set aside Trump's little quips here and there that people seem to latch onto. Focus on the details. Focus on, as Vince said, the machine politics. The machine is running as it's supposed to run. And until there's disruption to that, I'm sad to say, I don't expect anything good to come from the Trump administration. The only other foil, I suppose, in the plan is Trump's a very erratic person. And I can't explain the tweet. I don't really understand what the objective was behind it, other than to get us to talk about it, which is, it seems, Trump's modus operandi. He likes to stir up things to get people talking, but then you sort of look for the there, and there isn't anything there.
If he wants to get people talking, he needs to be tweeting these things out, not putting them on Truth Social.
I know.
Yeah.
Maybe
It's so
that's
lame.
why I didn't hear about it, because who is on Truth Social?
All right, guys,
like
we're way over
Facebook.
2 hours. Let's get to some super chats.
All right.
All right.
Let's see what we got.
You still have time if you go to
Power chat. Well, no, sorry.
no.
The
The
backlash.net
/super chat.
super chat.
/super chat. Okay.
It's in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen.
I thought somebody was gonna get in there for me.
No, I thought you were doing it, so I just kind of.
But yeah, Power
cleared the
Chat
way.
is an option for sure.
Power chat's an option. Streamlabs is an option, and what's the other one? Entropy. And we're working on a version with Bitcoin that will be decentralized, hopefully using Tether.
Oh my god! All right, that show ended up going
I don't
okay.
care much until I actually have Bitcoin.
Yeah,
When I
really.
have Bitcoin, I'll care.
And by the way, if you go to our website, thebacklash.net, we do have a Bitcoin fundraiser set up, and there's a way that you can donate anonymously. We create new addresses every time there's a new donation, so groups like Chainalysis can't follow your money.
God, I love your wife. This is like the best tea I've ever had.
That's great.
So floral and
Yeah, you
Delicate?
You dumped it into my English breakfast tea.
oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was being
Now it tastes like flowers. Great. Bill Biz sent $25. Thank you for the super chat. Citing the danger of Chi-Com influence, it looks like the usual suspects want to see TikTok undergo a kosher modification. Apparently, Gen Z was viewing far too much Gaza content.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
True.
Too. Wasn't there like a graph that someone
Yeah,
posted about?
it's out there.
I don't care about the rules. I can't take this anymore. Sorry, guys.
What are you doing?
You
No,
have
you
the
can't
glasses.
do that.
I can't read these.
You're not. He'll read them to us.
Look at
No.
No, we're not doing
gonna read
this.
them. Ooh. My brother-in-law saw these glasses and he goes, "You're either 10 years too old to wear them, or wait, what did he say? Damn, it was funny too."
Can we get you some like non-cat lady glasses?
Oh, I like these.
Jeez.
You look
you
like
don't even
that,
have cats, you have dogs.
I do, and I hate both of them. Yeah,
Have you seen that series Yellow Jackets on Netflix?
yeah, we talked about it last
Yeah,
week.
you look like the crazy one. The
Look
one
like
who
a
poisoned
librarian.
everyone
Oh, the Christina Ricci's
with those
character?
glasses. Yeah, with those glasses. Yeah.
You should all be a little scared.
But yeah, no, there was something back to Bill Biz's thingy dingy super chat. Oh my
TikTok.
God. Don't
Yeah.
clip that. Do
Max
not clip that.
Blumenthal. That's who you were thinking
I was
about
thinking
earlier.
about Max
Yeah.
Blumenthal from the Gray Zone. You're right. Apparently, Trump just came out and said that he's going to try to do something to block the sale of TikTok or to keep it online.
It's the erratic behavior like Cameron was talking about because he was against TikTok until Barron Trump got him with Aiden got him on with Aiden Ross.
And now he's on
against
every
it.
night.
And now he's like on TikTok. Now he like supports TikTok.
Yeah, here it is. Trump considering a plan to save TikTok. That just came out like a couple of hours ago.
I hope they do. I hope someone does, Mr. Beast or someone buys it because I love TikTok.
Could Mr. Beast afford that?
He says he was meeting with billionaires, like a bunch of billionaires, to come up with a plan to.
All pedophiles.
Emma sent $10. Hey guys, thanks again for the quality content. I was wondering how big a role you think religion will play in the coming years. Secular right-wing talking points just don't seem to make any impact. God bless you all and your families. I agree. I actually think that organizing religious communities, turning them into political machines is going to be the way forward. I think that,
I totally agree. Look at what happens when it's secular. James Lindsay.
Yeah, I was just thinking about, I was literally thinking about the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like, that's what they fear. They fear, that's why they're always talking about Christian nationalism now, is because they know what's coming with the Christian right. They know exactly what's coming. And this is why you have people like James Lindsay on the right trying to control the right, trying to redirect the right, and talking about, oh, you can't be too freaked out about sexual this. You can't be, don't become white.
And there's people like Father Calvin Robinson, and even people like, these are Protestants, but Joel Webbin, I'm thinking of like Eric Kahn. There's a few, and these Protestant churches that traditionally have been stranglehold by the Zionists are now starting to talk about the Talmud. They're starting to talk about the significant religious differences between
Is that
Christians
church
and
over on
Jews.
government doing that?
No.
95?
No.
Oh, another big reason why they don't like TikTok is really spreading Christianity to young men.
Yes, it is.
It's a big thing on, you've got the degeneracy, of course, but a lot of young kids are becoming Christian, are like starting to read the Bible, my son included. I mean, this is not something I told him to do because of a lot of the Christian content that's being pushed through the TikTok algorithm. Same with the Instagram Reels.
Yeah.
Some of the things that sell the most on TikTok, on the TikTok shop, are like Christian brand clothing brands.
Right, yeah.
Interesting. That's really interesting.
Thanks,
Truth
Emma.
Seeker 706 sent $5. In my experience, many Protestants oddly seem to view Catholics as not quite Christian. Their main gripes are 1, salvation through grace and good works as opposed to grace alone, and 2, skepticism about the Catholic Church's hierarchy. Thoughts?
It's funny because that's why I think the Protestants are not quite Christian.
Well, I mean, at least they're being consistent, right? Like, we say outside the church there is no salvation, and if they say you're a dirty papist, okay, at least we believe each other's going to hell or whatever. But there is a kind of antagonism within Protestantism towards specifically Catholicism, and I think frankly it's mostly because of the Zionist infiltration to the Protestant churches.
But they love Martin Luther.
Well,
Same thing happened with the Catholic Church.
He
though,
wasn't
too.
a genuine anti-Semite.
Martin Luther?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Yes, he was.
But didn't he write that treatise because he tried to get Jewish money and influence and they rebuffed him?
And then he wrote on the Jews and their lies.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But he tried to get in bed with them
He
first.
was trying to convert them and get in bed. Yeah, exactly. But when you can see this all the time with different heretical movements that have popped up in Europe that were predominantly by Jews.
He was mad that they wouldn't take him,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really think that much
that doesn't
about
come
Martin
from
Luther.
a real place of disagreement with their ideology.
Well, I mean,
most
the
Protestants
whole
don't
thing-
even know about that book that Martin Luther wrote.
The whole Protestant revolution was, I agree with you, Michael Jones, here, that is what shattered European unity, that the Reformation was basically just a land grab by local princes that were seeking to get control of either their own regions or, to seek their own gain. And they used this ideological difference or doctrinal difference to justify them taking the church's property, land, gold, etc. But really, I think that's mostly what it was, and that Luther was just a horny monk. But when you look at modern Protestants, I think that a lot of the antagonism towards Catholicism is specifically because of the church's traditional teaching on the Jews, Sicut Judaeus Non, which is expounded by Edward Sinan.
And confession.
What, you think that's why I don't know. Whatever.
A lot of it's confession.
They also hate Mary. I don't know.
They do.
I think I'm not the guy that's gonna be like, well, you gotta be like. As long as like we're on the same side, we can have these arguments and conversations later. We need to do some other things first. We need to take care of some other things first. Wait, somebody in the live chat
just said Martin Luther couldn't control his coom brain. That is exactly right.
True. He was a horny monk.
He was.
Mo Jack sent $25, celebrating 1 year cancer-free. Love the show. You broke the YouTube algorithm. It's like 2014 again.
That's so great. So I met Mo Jack in Iowa. And he had a type of cancer that just kills everybody.
What?
And he was able to do some sort of experimental treatment, and he's been cancer-free. He's this like old, hard bastard. He's just drinking PBRs. He was wearing Confederate flag shorts. He's super cool. And so I had a dream a few weeks ago that his cancer came back. So I messaged him on Twitter. I'm like, have you gotten your PET scan this year or whatever? Mm-hmm. And then I told him about my dream. And he's like, you're not clairvoyant, bitch. And then he got his PET scan, and he is cancer-free.
That's awesome.
Congratulations.
Yeah. What was the experimental thing?
I don't know. Mojack, let me know. It wasn't like Fenben. I think it might have been stem cell treatment or something like that, but he had a pretty advanced non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I might be screwing this whole thing.
Damn, lymphoma at that age?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Well, I'm happy he beat it, and I'd love to know what he did because
congrats, man. That's awesome.
There have been rumors about cancer cures and all this stuff that have been suppressed for like decades and decades.
Did you see the FDA just banned Red 6?
Seriously?
Yeah, Red 3.
Red 3. Yeah,
that's
Red
great.
3.
Red 3.
They said
RFK getting to work.
Well, he's not even in charge yet, but yeah.
Oh yeah,
that's awesome. Right. Europe's had it banned for what, 10 years?
Right, and that's only one of like
European
12.
food is superior in every way. Anonymous sent $14.88. I'm just doing this to simp for Rebecca.
Thank you.
No, don't do that. Don't simp for e-girls. No e-girls, never.
Never, not even once.
Not even once.
Listen, if you put me in charge, I would destroy this movement. I just want you all to know that.
Vessel sent $10. The term racism is attributable to Richard Henry Pratt in the early 20th century. It was used to describe Native America who clung to their cultural heritage instead of assimilating. So basically, racist used to mean what anti-racist means today.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Wait, what? Racist used to mean what anti-racist means today.
Can you figure that out?
Can you?
No, but it's fine.
So like hating, like racist back then used to mean what? So being
Vessel,
racist.
Send us another super chat and please explain further, elaborate.
Expound upon.
I would like to know more of your thinking and how a guy, I mean, like you can look at how things were, there was a lot of ethnic tension between the Irish and the Germans and the Anglo-Saxons. They would like throw bricks in each other's church windows and stuff.
I would
like
understand
that,
if it was like the term racialist, right? That would make sense.
But
that.
I don't think that would mean like anti-nativism. If you were a racialist back then you would be like, hey, these Italians are subhuman. We need to put them in the mines. I don't know. Subhuman, hey. Mojack sent $25.
Hey.
Celebrity being 1 year cancer-free. Did you send this twice?
You sent it twice, buddy.
Here's something for the show. Keep it up. Every day's a blessing. No, that's a unique.
That's a new one.
Well, he must have accidentally sent
If you want your money back, I figured out how to do refunds so we can take.
But nobody before now gets a.
Reinhardt sent $25.
Yo.
Didn't mean to strike a nerve, haha. But step up your game, Dave. Here's a little something for the Boomer Tech Fund. Thank you, Reinhardt.
Oh, Reinhardt is the best. He's so good at striking a nerve. So one time, One time he called in on the show, the Matt and Blonde show, and Matt was doing some like milquetoast nonsense or whatever, and Reinhardt called him a disingenuous faggot. Whoa. And it created like a years-long rift between them. He was so mad about it. I've never seen him so mad before. Reinhardt's good dude.
Good dude. Yeah, he follows me on Twitter. He's a very great reply guy. I love him.
He is a
stuff.
good reply guy. He's like right there out of the gate.
Michael Gerard sent $5. I'm not white, but I've been studying whites until whites realize that they are the 12 tribes of Israel and that Jews are committing identity theft. No true progress can be made for whites without being
Now I'm
This is a black Hebrew Israelite.
Is he a black Hebrew Israelite? Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, well, it's definitely smacks of like Christian identity, which is a very unique and particularized sect from like the 1970s that grew out of General MacArthur's intelligence unit, which is kind of interesting. Robert sent $25. Looks like the new CEO of Starbucks is a white guy that replaced a Pajit. That's a rare W. I wonder what could have prompted such a change. It's a complete mystery. Don't forget to prepare with Vince today and to stay safe during those hard times.
Stay safe. Are you going to tell the story about your dad with My Patriot Supply?
I mean, yeah, it was just funny. Like, my dad had been, I guess, watching your show unbeknownst to me for like a couple years. And like I showed up at home and there's like a bunch of My Patriot Supply in the basement.
In the living room, just
And I'm like, yo, what's going on here? It's like, oh, I got it from preparewithvincent.com. And I'm like, yo,
That's so
what? That's
funny.
my friend.
That's
Next time
hilarious.
you come up, I'll take you over to his house. And we brought my dad over and everybody hung out and it was a good time.
man.
That's so funny. Can you go look up
Papa
the
Joe.
Starbucks CEO real quick? I want to see how white
Jewish?
he actually is. Yeah, Starbucks new CEO.
Brian Nickel.
Yeah, it looks.
Yeah.
I don't
Okay.
know.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I have a,
Do we have a Wikipedia on this guy? We do. Look at this. Let's
Early life.
nothing.
nothing. All right.
All right. Well, that's kind of weird.
Okay.
Okay, well,
Did he
hey,
wait, white guys are replacing Indians now? What the?
Interesting.
based. Cool. Great.
Cool.
Step in the right direction. Okay, we did that one. That was the Starbucks one. Big Mad Lad sent $5. We need Cameron as Chancellor of the Fourth Reich.
I agree.
Cameron, will you take on this responsibility?
The second Constitution. How's that? I'll settle for that.
You know, it's so funny. Every time Cameron comes on a show, like my show or this show or whatever, he is always just like in a random place and he does not give a shit that people around him hear what we say.
Yeah.
He doesn't have earphones in. He just does it on his computer audio, his computer speaker. He's in a coffee shop and we're like, you know.
Can you
saying-
imagine going up to Cameron though and trying to ask him about what he was talking about? He would just be like, "You have an intimidating presence."
He doesn't care. It's so
I have had people come up to me after and they're like, you know, I heard what you said and I really agree with you.
Really?
Turning away. Yeah, no, it's
Interesting.
happened occasionally. My assumption, people who don't agree, they move away
Yes.
quickly.
Right. Which is why the room is empty since we've been saying that Jews did 9/11 the
Yeah,
entire
really.
night.
We did say that a lot.
You don't have any proof for that. That's just an allegation. Anonymous sent $5. It never pays to make exceptions, and you'll pay 100 times more than you can afford for each you make. 2 girls want to dress like Barbie, have a great time and show off. 3, make money. Good friends and strong community. 4, donate to causes you support. 5, simp. 4. What? I feel like you ran out of space on that one. I didn't really
Maybe.
follow that.
Those are good life rules.
Those are good life rules.
Girls do want to dress like Barbie.
My daughter loves dressing like a princess.
Oh yeah, I don't even think she likes me, but like when I come over, she comes up and gives me a hug, and I think it's because I try to dress like Barbie.
She thinks you're like real life Barbie. maybe?
Yeah.
Could be. Muffington sent $5. When things in the West turn, our empathy will tell us to go easy or stop. But thanks to the internet, we all have receipts. We must take a play out of the Book of Rome when they fought back against Carthage and prohibit the word peace.
No.
Partage delende est.
True.
I don't think, if history is any guide, empathy is not going to be in the lexicon when things shift. We'll see.
Well, and I mean, this is an interesting point, right? Like, it's we could talk about the Spanish Inquisition and how that whole thing happened, right? Because things started to get out of hand in Spain in the 1480s and 1490s with usury, degeneracy, specifically coming out of the Jewish converso community, which pretended to convert to Catholicism so that they could gain status and rank.
You hear that, Andrew Clavin?
And the problem was that there was a pogrom in Seville I believe it started in Seville, and they quickly started to sweep the countryside with these mobs of people killing Jews, pretty indiscriminately. And this is actually a sin against justice because not all of the people that were swept up in those pogroms were guilty, which is why Isabella and Ferdinand brought the Dominicans in as a third party that was not wronged by the Jews in Spain, so that they could come and judge each allegation that was brought forward impartially. And so the Dominicans, through the Spanish Inquisition, actually whittled it down to, I think, 2% of all the people accused actually being found guilty. And then they were eventually executed by the state. And it was a good thing. It was a holy thing. Isabella and Ferdinand should be saints. They're not saints for political reasons. But we do have to be aware of that, right? Like, there's a lot of problems. It's very clear where the problems are coming from. And it would be a sin against justice to just like start,
indiscriminately.
Pogroms, yeah.
Right, that's wrong. We don't actually
Most
want that.
pogroms
We
weren't,
want
like,
justice.
mass murder.
Not every Jew is guilty of what the Netanyahu or Likud regime is doing in Israel to the Palestinians. Not every Jew is complicit in 9/11. Not every Jew is complicit in the JFK assassination. But to say that the Jews weren't involved is also a lie. So we have to be, I think, very discerning. And make
this
sure
is why women can't be in charge because
you can't be emotional
I
about
would
these
I
things.
would be highly emotional
Right.
and I would not be discerning.
Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
Ending of Game of Thrones. Well, speaking of Spain, there was some news story that I saw on Twitter of the Spanish, the leader of Spain or something, blocking Jews from coming there. Or
Really? Recently?
Yeah, there was, and then some people were tweeting out, "Oh, she's 500 years too late" or something. Or I don't know if you can pull it up on Twitter.
Not right
Spain,
now.
500 years too late.
I don't know. We're
I feel
gonna
like
keep.
some of those were good merch opportunities. First traders, then invaders.
Yeah, I would add to Dave's point though, because it is a good one, and I know at this stage, because we're early in this transition, and a lot of people feel the situation's hopeless, right? I mean, I think when we started the show, that's something Rebecca said to me is, people feel despair, particularly the most awakened among us, and certainly that's what I've experienced.
Yes.
But look, folks, I think we're on the cusp of a major swing. But swings are dangerous. They are fraught with peril. There's a Jungian principle, I think it's called enantiodromia. Any idea taken to its extreme produces its opposite. Well, we are certainly, I think, flirting with that shift. And that means that things could get out of hand. What we've got to do is we've got to push for reformation. We've got to push for reconstruction. What we don't want is destruction. We don't want chaos. We don't want instability, right? We want to stabilize a society that's falling apart. But inevitably, there is going to be some arsony. There is going to be some chaos, and we've got to be prepared to deal with it. My fear is that you'll get some imbalanced people that'll shift us in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
That could happen. That could absolutely happen. So we've got to guard against that, as Dave said, and we've got to maintain focus on the goal, which is to stabilize an unstable system and build a sort of reformed society. I think we can do it, but it's not going to be easy. That's for sure. There's a lot of anger.
Yes.
A lot of anger. in the
Our
country.
baser instincts are requiring blood for what has happened. And I feel that all the time. Aren't you overcome with anger?
No, I'm not.
How
Because
do
of
you temper that?
the Catholic faith? Because these people, even if we don't, even if there is no punishment in this life, they're going to burn in hell for eternity.
That's true.
So I can take comfort in
Maybe
that.
this is a lack of faith, and
Well, we
that's
all
why.
know
be a
what
little bit of a
happens
lack
in the
of faith.
Bible at the very
true.
end.
The Catholic Church has been explicit in its teaching on the Jews. I'm going to try it. There's a book, I've got it on my desk, called The Popes and the Jews in the Middle Ages by Edward Sinan, or I think is his name. And it is the only place that I've been able to find the full text of Sicut Judaeus Non, which is very important. Maybe we should go over it in a show. And the text of Sicut Judaeus Non is that nobody has the right to harm the Jews. You can't go and desecrate their cemeteries. You can't disrupt their synagogues. You can't murder them. You don't touch them. Don't wipe them out. But at the same time, the Jews can't go beyond what's permitted to them in society. There was like a civil contract that you don't push pornography, you don't do these degenerate things, you don't attack our faith
And
and our culture.
if they do,
Well, if they do, then you have to look to the examples of what happened in the
You
past.
have to be careful. James Lindsay says this sort of conversation will lead to another Holocaust. So
no, I think that we have
to.
I mean, we need, the justice system needs reform, but if it is reformed, then the justice system is where this would have to be sorted out. Not in the streets, not with guns, not with violence. It needs to be sorted out with level heads in a calm, collected manner. That's my position on it. But anyway. Wingy sent $25. Thanks for the big super chat. The fact that TikTok has videos of 6-year-old girls twerking is all the proof that I need that we need a revolution and a return to social decency.
I thought that said decay.
You should see what's on Netflix.
Yeah, really. Cuties.
No, you're right. I mean, it's activating people. There was something just the other day I saw where people on TikTok were getting served porn. It's like really messed up.
Yeah, it's crazy. You got to take the good with the bad, though, right? It's good. It's bad that, you have all this people addicted to technology and social media and so forth. But it's
they could
also
just ban
good
porn.
because we can use it to our advantage. It's the reason why we're here today.
Yeah. We could just ban porn, though, and then it would just be all
Texas
good.
is trying
Wouldn't that
to.
be great?
Wouldn't that be great? Reinhardt with the massive super chat, $50.
buddy.
I have to be honest, I don't know what to make of this apparent schism between Trump and Israel. I would love to believe that it comes from a place of sincerity in Trump, but I think that it would have to see an actual condemnation to believe it.
Yeah, that's along the lines of what Cameron was saying. Right.
What's schism? What does he mean by that?
I think he's just talking
This
about
rift between Netanyahu
like you
and
constantly
Trump.
see these stories about like Jared Kushner and Trump having a falling out and Netanyahu and Trump having a falling out and Trump tweeting this video. I think it's just random conversations with Burr and Trump. I really think.
Could be.
I think it is.
Could be.
But that doesn't mean there's a schism between Trump and Israel, right?
Yeah.
These are personal peccadillos at most. And again, you got to think in terms of the machine. That's the word to use. Trump is one man, and this is one tweet. This is not a schism. I think that is an ill-advised term.
Well, Israel, there's a lot of people that are like a lot of Jewish people that supported Trump that are now really upset with him over this whole ceasefire thing.
Those are the Kahanists, okay? Those are the extreme right-wing crazies. Those are the types of people that murdered Yitzhak Rabin because he compromised.
But aren't like the Adelsons those people?
I don't know. The Adelsons, I think they are, right? Because they were the crime family that founded Las Vegas. So they were very involved with the Meyer Lansky Mafia, Modalitz, and all of them. So it could be that the Adelsons are, but, are there other factions out there? There's different political parties in Israel. It's not all just Likud.
Yeah, but the majority of the Israelis do support what is happening and what has happened at Netanyahu. And remember that a lot of Americans make the mistake of assuming that if you change the president, if we just get rid of Putin, everything will be great. If we just get rid of the Ayatollahs, everything will be great. That's not the way countries work. Ultimately, governments tend to reflect their populations. So you replace one leader, eventually you're going to get somebody else that expresses the same ideas in a very different manner. We're up against a machine, the machine of AIPAC, and the machine of AIPAC has gone nowhere. Now, it is being challenged, I think, on the left. I don't see any meaningful challenge to it on the right other than the dissident right, which is largely online. That's got to change. We've got to organize ourselves sort of like the Justice Democrats if we're going to mount serious resistance to these folks. And that means building a counter machine. That's what I've talked about before. Until that happens, there is no schism because it's impossible for there to be a schism. It's impossible, right? They control the military-industrial complex. They have the largest lobbyist group in the country. They control the media narrative. It just doesn't matter that there are large Palestinian demonstrations up in New York against it. It's not going to stop it. We have to stop it. We have to build a new party that can challenge these people. That's the answer.
I don't think that it matters who's in charge of Israel. I mean, it sort of matters, but it really doesn't, because throughout the entire history of Israel becoming a state, we've done basically everything that they've wanted us to do. I mean, you look at from Ben Gurion on, we've went to war for them, the JFK assassination, 9/11, and so forth. So it seems like either way.
It's interesting too. You can look at these.
The thing to understand too is that what's happening in the Middle East right now is really, it's a holy war, and it's viewed that way from both sides, right? I talked about this on Vince's show, the rise of what's called asabiya, right? This is a concept that comes from an Arab historian named Ibn Khaldun. It's a kind of national consciousness that's rising specifically among the Arabs, but I think among the Muslims in general because of what's happening to the Palestinians in Gaza. This is a sort of spiritual crisis inside the House of Islam. At the same time, the people that back Netanyahu, the Mithrahi, who are Semites, they're fundamentalists. They want to bulldoze the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is one of the holiest sites in Islam, and rebuild Solomon's temple. That's what this is about, Dave.
Yeah.
So this is not going to stop. And that's why sending some tweet out, yeah, it's great. It is fodder for people like us. What does it meaningfully change? I don't think it's going to change.
Hegseth wants to get rid of the mosque.
I wanted to point out, yes, he does. He wants to rebuild the third temple.
He does indeed.
Yeah. He wants. We had a clip on that. Maybe we'll play it next week. But we do have these statistics that Israelis are divided over the country's military response against Hamas in Gaza. And what's astounding to me is the 34% that believe that they did not go far enough.
Right.
And then, of course, there's the combined, 67% that believe that they would succeed. Well, guess what? Today they took an L.
Yeah.
They took a massive L today when they signed that hostage agreement or whatever. That was effectively Israel admitting defeat against Hamas and Hamas declaring victory.
It is possible in our lifetime that we see the end of Israel as we know it.
You know, the Jews have never had a state under their own control for longer than 80 years.
Oh, really?
Israel has existed for 76. So they've got 4
Damn,
years
4
left.
years of Trump. Holy shit.
They've got 4 years left.
Is that real?
That's real. That's real. The first temple period was 80 years. The second temple period was 80 years. And since
I'm
the
sure
second
Zion
temple,
Don is going to take care of it for
well,
us.
there's a lot of people that think that Donald Trump is the Messiah, the Moshiach, right? There is a school of thought out there.
There's one rabbi that said that, right?
Yeah, there is one rabbi that said that. And they gave him some weird crown. I don't know. They're monarchists. It's weird. Anonymous said $5. Look, I'm really glad about Blonde starting a new venture, and I think it's a great potential, but I can't continue to support the show in good conscience while Sarah is
Does anyone know what this means? Okay.
What?
Who's Sarah?
People have been talking about this a lot, this Sarah character, and it's some sort of show meme that I don't understand and nobody will explain it to me. And I don't get it.
It's an inside joke that only the audience has.
Yes. And it's making me feel so lame and old. And I keep asking people to tell me, and they're like, no, we're not going to tell you anything.
Maybe we just need to double down on Sarah.
Yeah.
We're giving her a promotion.
Wait, is it when you put on the glasses?
No, it happened last week.
Is that who Sarah is?
No.
Does she take control? Okay.
We're gonna make Sarah the
Vince.
producer.
Is Sarah an acronym?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't have any earthly idea.
Someone please tell me.
Anonymous sent $10. Israeli power isn't going to die in a single tweet. His cabinet is full of Zog. I wouldn't be surprised if Trump is being soiled on every platform for a specific outcome. The CIA does some crazy shit, maybe right under Elon's nose.
Siloed, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Interesting.
Do you guys think that Israel has sort of like this, it doesn't matter who's in office, right? Like Biden isn't controlling anything, and Israel's gotten basically everything that they wanted under Biden. Do you guys think that it works the same sort of way in Israel?
What do you
Or
mean?
do you think that the prime minister has?
It does now. It does now. And the reason for that is October 7th. I think there was a massive permutation. Maybe it's been building for years, but there is real fear that Israel's facing an existential crisis. The 80-year timeline is interesting that Dave mentioned. I'm unfamiliar with that, but I do think that speaks to the psyche of Israel at the moment. They feel as though they're under siege. Remember, we talked about this last episode. Hundreds of thousands have left. That's a massive blow to that state. And a lot of their settlements, they've never resettled. The confidence of the country is just not very high right now. So the mission, the prime directive, if you will, of the government is to exterminate any existential threats to the Israeli state so that they can reshore that confidence and perpetuate Israel. That's their view. That's why this war is not going to stop. That's why the ceasefire isn't going to hold up, in my view. So, no, I don't think it's going to matter much, even if Netanyahu goes. That being said, it may matter a little bit because Netanyahu, the way he's prosecuted the war, I would argue, has put Israel at risk. And maybe you could get somebody in there who's a bit more strategic But regardless, they have to restore that sense of confidence in the state of Israel to get those people to come back. That's their prime directive.
So read the first Jewish state founded by King David, accomplished phenomenal achievements and survived united for 80 years. The second Jewish state existed for 77 years. The establishment of the state of Israel 75 years ago. So when was this article written?
This was written about a year ago.
A year ago, so 76 years.
Where does it, doesn't say? No,
it doesn't actually say.
It doesn't matter. It was founded in 1948. Do the math.
Oh, right. So that's interesting. Oh, it's the third attempt. Oh, the third attempt to, okay.
This is only the third time that they have had their own state.
You get the Second Temple era, existed for 77 years.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we have to play that Pete Hegseth clip.
The one about him building the temple?
It's like 30 seconds.
It's in the outline.
I've got it. Hold on. All right.
38 seconds.
That I hope all of you don't see too far away. Because 1917 was a miracle. 1948 was a miracle. 1967 was a miracle. 2017, the declaration of Jerusalem as the capital was a miracle. And there's no reason why the miracle of the reestablishment of the temple on the Temple Mount is not possible.
That's the clip. That's crazy. He's at the King David Hotel, too.
Right.
Good Lord.
And do you know what happened at the King David Hotel?
That's
Rebecca?
the one that they blew up.
That's the one that they blew up. The Irgun blew it up, and they blew it up, and this is even in Wikipedia, they blew it up in attempts to hide the documents on the atrocities that radical terrorist Israelis were committing at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And they killed a bunch of British people. Wow,
How many people died?
I think it was 38 people died. I think 38 or 48.
Oh, 46 injured. 91 people of various nationalities were killed.
91? Oh, damn. It was a lot bigger than I thought it was. And I remember. A lot of this information I've forgotten about. But yeah, there it is. King David Hotel. Why is he speaking at the King David Hotel? And people like James Lindsay, they say, well, they don't have that much power. Why do we have people going to speak at the King David Hotel and pray on the Western Wall?
Yeah.
Why does every leader have to go and put on the kippah and pray on the Western Wall? It's obviously a lot more than a mid-tier lobbying organization.
A little bit.
Anyway.
Ninja Guana. No, Ninja Guinea.
Oh, Ninja Guinea.
Ninja Guinea.
I get it.
Whatever. What up, guys? Sorry I've been such a Jew, but this is the first time that I've actually caught you live. Been following Vince and Rebecca since the beginning. Always keep up the good work.
Aw,
Big shout out,
so
Ninja.
much.
Thank you for the big super chat.
Ninja Guinea.
Ninja Guinea.
Play on words with Ninja Guinea from the old school D-Live chat
Oh, yeah,
days.
that's right.
The Ninja Guineas. Yeah.
And Guinea, which is an anti-Italian slur.
Right.
We're going to
It
get
is.
the Italian Defamation League on your ass.
We need
for
to have
that.
an anti-Italian
They tried
definition.
that. They got sued out of existence by the ADL.
Did they really?
Yes, Google
It's
it.
like we trademarked
We
that.
already tried. They tried that in like the '60s. This Italian Anti-Defamation League came out, and then the ADL was like, "That's copyright infringement," and like sued them out of existence. You
That's
can look
funny.
it up. Cam, is there any utility to joining the military anymore? If so, in what capacity? Or should white men simply steer clear?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't think there's any issue joining as long as you don't make a full career of it right now. So, join for a few years. Just understand that the higher you climb, the more DEI you're going to have to deal with. The danger being, of course, that you may get deployed to fight in some disastrous war. But I still think it's worth it. I still think the training you might be exposed to, some of the people you'll meet at lower levels, it's probably still worth it to do so. Just understand you run that risk that you could get deployed to some country in the Middle East that we shouldn't be fighting, and you may die there. That's a big risk. It is. But the training, the experience at lower levels, yeah, I think it's still worth it.
The retirement. I know one guy who
Free college.
I know one guy who's retired, and he's like 40, and he's got a salary for the rest of it. Well, he got his arm blown off, basically.
Oh,
though,
good
by a
Lord.
rocket launcher.
Yeah, okay, maybe not.
It wasn't blown off. He still has fun. He still has his arms, but he got shot with a freaking RPG, basically.
Anonymous sent $5. As a WASP guy, I was just going to say Protestants tend to genocide our enemies, like with the natives and German Jews. Catholics enslave and breed with theirs, like the Spanish and French. That's why Germany gets hate and the Italians get a pass for World War II. Fair. I mean, that's a criticism. That's fair. And it's true. I mean, the Catholic Church has, like I said, they specifically said don't wipe them all out. So we are against that.
Just some of them.
Just some of them. Reinhardt sent $5. Calm down, Cam. I'm just talking about Trump criticizing Israel and Netanyahu in ways he hasn't before.
Calm down, Cam.
Calm down. You look very not calm, Cam.
Cam's scary. It's
calming down.
It's closing time where he's at.
And it's closing time where we're... Oh, wait. We have one... How do I play this? How do I...
You can't. Is it Entropy?
It's Streamlabs. Can I, like, re-trigger this? Because this is a big super chat. Maybe I'll like zoom in on it like this. Thank you. That is something we discussed at our last board meeting. We do need to get Cam a better camera.
We do have board meetings.
Ganon. The Legend of Zelda?
No. Yeah, actually, Ganon. I was thinking Pokemon for a second, but that was someone else.
Oh, I know Ganon from Subscribestar.
Oh, okay.
Hey, bud.
Amazing. Thank you so much for the super chat.
We really appreciate it. Is that it? Are we good?
Yeah. I mean,
that is it.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. I know we got off to a bumpy start, but we pulled it off in the end.
We did. I was also going to point out our website. We've been constantly improving it. We've got a new section called Support the Show in the upper right-hand corner.
What the hell is that?
That was the thumbnail that I put. You're doing thumbnails now, so it's fine.
Everybody looks bad in that.
So anyway, we have our Subscribestar, our Patreon, a link to our donate page, all of our links, so you can follow all of our different accounts on X, Rumble, YouTube, Odyssey, wherever. And we also have an Amazon wish list with gear that we can use to help make the show better for everybody. So please visit our website, thebacklash.net. I spent some time working on it, so I'd like it if people used it.
One day we are going to have the best show with no hiccups. It's going to be awesome.
It's coming soon. I can feel it. It's going to be next week.
No, it's not. It's not going to be next week.
It's going to be next week. We're going to be taking over.
Thank you all so much for staying late with us. Check us out. Check out the replay on my channel. We really do appreciate it. This is our new time slot, Wednesday, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. This is The Backlash. I'm Rebecca Hargraves. This is Vince James. This is Dave Riley. That's Cameron McGregor.
Cameron Nigger.
Oh, no. Cameron McGregor.
No, I didn't say that.
Cameron McGregor.
McGregor. And we will see you next week. Bye, guys.